Welcome, everybody.
You're looking sharp, Roland. And you're on mute.
Well, thanks. I figured out the mute part.
That's a good one to remember. It's better to have it on than off. Because who's on here? Typically, you're going to want to say swear words at Matt Gall. He's doing dishes.
Not me.
We'll kick this off here in just a few seconds. Glenn, looks like your crew is here in abundance.
Yes, there'll be two that are kind of out of town, but they will be participating.
That's great.
I'm here.
All right.
Is Al on? No.
Well, I'm impressed, I have to say. Who has pink on?
I do.
Do you see my pink sunglasses? I even added accessories.
Rory, I thought you asked who had pink eye.
Me too.
And then Heidi was very quick, and I was slow. I caught on.
Oh, that's funny.
No
All
pink eye
right.
over here.
No pink eye. No pink
No
eye.
pink
No pink eye.
Heidi, thanks for running the last meeting. We sure appreciate you.
I think that was a while ago, but I don't think I'm ever going to recover from that. Can you not leave us again?
Never leave again, Mayor, ever.
Ever. Just
Ever, ever.
or give me a heads up and maybe like I'll be gone that time too or something.
Oh,
We'll
so
figure
sorry.
something out.
All right. Well, let's get this meeting underway. We have a workshop tonight, a discussion of the subdivision approval process. And following that, we're going to discuss the snow removal plan. So, Alex Murphy, do you want to begin? Is Alex on?
don't see him yet, Mayor.
All right, let's flip over then and let Public Works, since they've got the large crew here. Let's talk about the snow removal plan. When Alex gets on, we'll put him on next.
Hey, Mayor, we're waiting for one also. I'm on the
You've got
phone.
Okay,
Hey, you jumping on?
all right, let's see. I don't have Alex anywhere in there. Nate, would you give him a call and see if you can help him get going?
Sure.
So it's a race now, Glenn. Either Nate or your fellow coming on. Whoever's here first will give them the first option.
Start texting now, Levi.
What's that?
Just told him to start texting Al.
I think I'm gonna win.
Hey guys, I'm here now.
Oh, hi, Alex. Good.
I didn't have the meeting invite, so I was scrambling there for a couple of minutes to get up.
Oh, I know. Isn't that terrible?
Yeah.
Okay, you're up, Alex.
All right. Well, can't make it worse than that. So thanks everybody for hanging in there for a second. So earlier this year, the RDA approached planning and wanted to start a discussion about the subdivision ordinance and subdivision process. This was a topic that we've been seeing some council members have comments on over the last few months as we've had some projects come through. And it was also something that was in the housing plan as one of our goals for that first or second year implementation schedule. So looking at revising the subdivision process, hopefully in an effort to make it a little easier for new housing units to come online. So after the RDA approached us, we started having some internal discussions and quickly realized we really need to get some input from the Planning Commission and the City Council on what would be the best goals for the subdivision process and how we would go about seeing those happen. So I've had Jason prepare a relatively short presentation that kind of goes over what our subdivision process says now, how that compares to state code, and then also he provides a couple examples of some other communities and how they've approached subdivisions. And then I really wanted to just have a discussion about what the council thinks would be the best way to approach this process as we look at potentially revamping that process, what sort of things we might want to see in it, how we might want to go about approaching it. We are going to have the same discussion with the Planning Commission later this month. So my goal would be to get feedback from both bodies and then hopefully start working on preparing some changes, some draft changes to be considered. And if we need to have multiple discussions to kind of hash or iron some things out, I'm happy to do it. We've got a little bit of time so that we can make sure that we get hopefully to a place where everybody's happy. With that in mind, or with that said, I will give it over to Jason and he can run through his quick presentation for you. And then after that, we can continue the discussion. Jason, all you.
Right. Good evening, everybody. I don't know if I need to tell IT that I'm going to share my screen, but it's a, I don't know, 11 or 12 slide presentation. Let's see. Okay, can you all see that?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So when Alex and RDA kind of were passing out assignments, we thought it would be good to start with a discussion of lines of authority and analysis between what the Utah code, the state code says versus Midvale Municipal Code. Specifically, the task as I understood it was to figure out the gaps, the opportunities between what the state requires of subdivision applications and what the city, what Midvale requires. And then to kind of identify what those differences might be. So it's always good to start with a common understanding of what those lines of authority are. So quickly, in state code, Utah addresses subdivisions in Title 10, Chapter 9, and that's where most of planning commission, the planning department gets its authority is through what we call the Land Use Development Management Act, LUDMA. And then municipal code in Midvale addresses subdivisions in Title 16, Chapter 4. So what I've done here is capture at the end of each, and these are verbatim statements out of Utah code, and the sections are in parentheses at the end. So state code directs a legislative body of each municipality to enact an ordinance discussing or outlining subdivision requirements. State code also says that if a legislative body fails to enact the ordinance, that state code prevails. You'll see this in very rural areas. In fact, very rural areas without a very robust planning department will just default to state code, period. Number 3 there, if a subdivision meets city code, and this is important, the land use authority shall approve it. Very clear language. It's kind of like a conditional use. If the applicant does meet the existing ordinance, then whoever the land use authority is shall approve it. I also put another bullet in there underneath. There's actually in state code no requirement for a public hearing or public comment. And you'll see in one of my later slides that some municipalities do that, that if the application meets code, it doesn't even seek public comment. Number 4, state code requires a municipality to designate a land use authority. Underneath that, the sub-bullet is that state code doesn't even require the legislative body to be the land use authority, but that a designated body be the authority. So that could be any entity, and it's often the planning commission in other cities. And then last is, interestingly, also for those very rural counties, is that if it's 10 or fewer lots, the city or the municipality doesn't even need a process for those land process for administrative land use applications. So bottom line there, Midvale subdivision application process currently meets state codes in its own way. Obviously, every city will follow this direction in different ways. Midvale code, we don't actually, when we got into this, it was interesting. The Midvale code doesn't explicitly designate a land use authority. What we have is reviewing bodies, and for all purposes, that is us designating a land use authority. That we don't use the word, so there could be some confusion. And reviewing bodies there, you see in that table at the very bottom, subdivision. It is a little bit confusing for an applicant and for staff to be able to explain this, but it looks like there's 3 different people involved with that. So who has final authority? Do they each have a piece? You know, who is the land use authority? Next slide. So we have a large division, subdivision and a minor subdivision process. Our large subdivisions requires 3 public meetings. Minor subdivisions are 2 public meetings. And these are even for applications that do meet the code. You're familiar with this. They come in with a preliminary, has to go to commission and then council, and then the final goes to city council. And then for the minor subdivisions, it's kind of like 1 each, but 3 public meetings and 2 public meetings. And then for both large and minor subdivisions in Midvale, the city council can permit departures from the code. Now, Alex has told me in his time here, this is not frequently used and it hasn't been used recently, but city council can depart from the code in these instances. And so if you're looking at final authority, it seems to be, despite that there's 3 different reviewing bodies for subdivision applications, it seems that the city council is essentially the land use authority. The large subdivisions, again, require three separate public hearings. And for 2 of these hearings, it's the full notification process. So sending out the mailers, envelopes, newspapers, websites, and then hearing those comments and receiving, collating all those comments and passing them to you. And then from what I've seen and from our discussions, it seems like between the 2 preliminary plats, there's a preliminary and a final, and between the preliminary to the Planning Commission and the City Council, when they're not accompanied by other applications, plats are not very complex. There's minor comments. City engineer will have some corrections. And then the applicant, because this is a long process, the applicant usually wants these hearings scheduled as fast as possible so they don't make those corrections often between preliminary going to the commission and then the council. Where they make those corrections is before they submit the final. So could a staff, in red there, could a staff review satisfy one of these 3 public hearings? That's something we can discuss. Midvale, with all its public hearing requirements, Midvale does have a very restrictive subdivision requirement in its code, but that's okay. Cities can be more restrictive than the state. They just can't be less restrictive, and all cities determine what's best for them. But right now, Midvale does have a quite restrictive application process for subdivisions. Now, there's pros and cons to that. I've listed some pros is that there is more oversight with more staff involvement, more public hearings, more opportunity for public comment. It can prevent that rush that developers are sometimes eager to get through, and it could possibly result in better subdivisions. One of the drawbacks, though, is that it certainly lengthens the approval process. The CC, when they override what the Planning Commission has said, you would question yourself, why is the Planning Commission seeing it in the first place if the CC is going to automatically see it anyway? And then the third bullet is an important one. It does increase time and effort for the developer staff and the land use authority seeing these applications 3 different times. And then finally, it is a level of oversight that's not required by the state, and it's not practiced by Salt Lake County or Salt Lake City. So let's see what the city and the county do for subdivision applications. I just, included the city because it's large, and the county because we're in it. On the left-hand side at the top is a direct quote from their code. They also don't use the word land use authority, but they do say the Planning Commission shall hear and decide all subdivision approvals pursuant to LUDMA, or the Land Use Development Act. So for their preliminary, and then on the right side, the county at the top, they actually do designate in words, the Planning Commission shall be the land use authority for all subdivisions. So let's look at the city on the left-hand side. Preliminary plats, all preliminary plats that meet code in Salt Lake City are approved by the director, the planning department director. If they don't meet code, then they do go to the Planning Commission for that public comment. And then the final plat is approved by the mayor. So if it meets code, Salt Lake City believes it can go from director to mayor. On the right-hand side in the county for all subdivision applications, the preliminary plat is approved by the Planning Commission, period. And then the final plat is approved by whoever's designated on the Planning Commission as their representative that signs those plats. So the bottom line there, the 2 big takeaways is that the city council is not involved with any subdivision applications in the city or the county, and Salt Lake City doesn't even require public comment if it meets code. It just goes right through that process. So a lot quicker, a lot less effort, but again, maybe not as much oversight as Midvale. So with that, that's kind of follows the lines of authority and gives you a feel for what our county and one of the largest cities in the county do. So what I'll do is then let's open this up for a little bit more discussion. And I think Alex was going to run through a couple of these scenarios.
Yeah, so our goal here is, as I mentioned, to try and address some of those housing plan concerns and also address whatever concerns the council and eventually the planning commission might have with the subdivision process. So the examples of Salt Lake City and Salt Lake County are helpful because they give basically, in my mind, as an example of as far away from the process we use that we can find while still also satisfying those minimum requirements at the state level. That's not necessarily to say that we should or need to follow those cities or the city or county in our process, but that kind of gives an idea of what we could be doing if we wanted to go that route. So I'd be curious to hear really what the council thinks is the most important aspect of the subdivision process, because that we can then kind of turn into some recommendations and some options for how we approach these in the future. So with that in mind, or with that question in mind, please let's hear what you've got to think.
Alex, one quick thought I have is that anything that cuts down on the amount of public hearings that we have to have on the same issues is, I think, wise just for time purposes. I mean, the Planning Commission, as you know, is spending, sometimes 4 hours in their meetings with public comments. And then we have that same public comment section for when it comes before us as well. So anything that eliminates that duplication, I'm all for.
I agree. That would definitely be helpful in the process. I mean, we've got right now, even the most basic of 4-lot subdivisions takes at least 3 months to get through. And when there's not really a whole lot happening on those plats, that's a lot of time both on the staff side and on the developer side that really doesn't benefit anybody.
And you have to send out double notices, right?
Yep, we will. When we do those larger subdivisions, the 2 preliminary meetings, which are the planning commission and the first council meeting, both get public notice. So we're sending out letters to everybody that owns property within 300 feet. We're posting it in the paper. We're posting it on multiple websites. We're actually posting a sign on the property too, so that everybody can see what's happening. And those subdivisions, quite frankly, when we do get public comment on them, the comments aren't usually things that we can consider as part of the subdivision process. They're kind of some general, almost clamor-like responses to development types that aren't under review in those subdivision requests. So we can still keep public hearing input opportunities in, say, the conditional use and master planning processes while removing it for the subdivisions, if that's the route that the council thinks would be the best.
I'm not in favor of cutting out any public comment time. I feel like that's something people like to try to use, and we have seen it be useful on occasions. I don't know if it's necessarily always helpful for like a 4-lot subdivision, but yeah, I don't see it's a problem now. I don't necessarily think taking a little bit of time to make giant changes is a bad thing.
This is Quinn. I mean, I think some of the frustration that people have had is when we have public hearings and they make comments, but the subdivision that's being proposed already meets the zoning, we have to approve it. And so then people are saying, well, then why even have us come in and give comment if you can't even consider it? So those are the situations where I look at it and say, if it's meeting the zoning requirements and we have to approve it, then why go through that process? Like what Alex said, is if you're going to have to require public comment for the conditional use or some of the other reasons, that's fine. But if we're letting people express themselves and then we just have to say, well, thanks for your comment, but we have to approve it anyway, I think that almost causes more frustration with everybody.
Yeah, I agree with Councilmember Sperry on that. As much as I love to give people the opportunity to express their feelings on these types of issues, I think what Councilmember Sperry said was correct, that people just feel frustrated that they're not being heard by the Planning Commission, and then they're not being heard by the City Council, and neither of us have the authority to say no on it anyway. So it just creates a lot of unnecessary anger and angst.
I think that's because that's what they know. But I do think there's always a lot of unintended consequences with changes like this. And I foresee people now going, wait a minute, I used to be able to come in and at least say my piece, and now I can't, and you've taken that away from me, which that's what I'm not in favor of. And I think they'll be just as frustrated. I don't think there's a way to make them less frustrated when when someone when a developer comes in and says, hey, we're going to build this atrocious, subdivision where we know parking is going to be a mess on camera. Like, there's no way that they're not going to be frustrated whether they can speak or not. So I think to think they would minimize frustration would not be accurate.
Heidi, do you have any thoughts on that process?
I kind of have to lean with Councilmember Sperry on this one. I think a lot of the people that I've talked to, when they do have complaints, then the frustration becomes, well, why did I even call if you guys can't do anything about it anyway? So I don't know. I don't know if it would alleviate any frustration, but just from like the last couple that we've had, when I have talked to them, it has been, well, then what's the point of even calling if you guys can't do anything?
Yeah.
So we either need to change, we need to either change the code if that's what other council members want to do, or, I don't know, leaving it as is seems like the worst possible solution, because some things definitely broken along the lines. Just watching the Planning and Zoning Commission meetings, you can sense there's quite a bit of tension and frustration amongst not only the Planning and Zoning Commissioners themselves, but definitely the public whose comments are read into the record.
So just so the council is aware, the current subdivision ordinance we have was adopted in 2001 and has largely been unchanged since then, as far as I can tell. So I would like this discussion and future ones, if we have them on this topic, to result in improvements to the ordinance in whatever way, shape, or form seem necessary. So we can get to a point where we talk about revamping the process, and those are definitely some helpful comments. Are there other topics or parts of that subdivision process that the council thinks might need some attention? For instance, Jason mentioned the approving bodies might be an option. We do have 3 levels of review at those subdivisions right now, and maybe some of them are unnecessary, or maybe they are. Are there any other thoughts that the council thinks would be helpful in this process as we move forward?
I mean, I guess of the 2 models that you showed us, the county model seems to be more agreeable than the Salt Lake City model anyway, because I don't know that our mayor would be authorized to do that without bypassing the council unless we created an additional role for the mayor to be able to do that.
Yeah. And there are other, I actually created a little almost Punnett Square sort of chart to talk about different options that we could pursue, because what we can do is we can start breaking this up into steps and figuring out who should be responsible for each step. So we currently have the preliminary and the final plats. I don't really see a reason why that would need to change. That's really helpful for us on the reviewing side to make sure we can catch all of the issues that might come up on the technical side and tweak the drawings to make sure they have all the pieces that they need. The part that might be worth considering is, maybe we only have 1 reviewer for all preliminary plats, and maybe we only have 1 reviewer for all final plats, and maybe they're separate or the same. Because we could do, for instance, Jason, if you want to go to your last slide again, we could have as options, the council might review the preliminary plat and then delegate the final plat authority to staff or the planning commission. That'd drop us down from 3 meetings to 1 or to 2. We could invert that, have staff review preliminary or planning, or keep the planning commission as preliminary and then have staff do the final. That second one is a little closer to what we have currently. We could have the council see none of it, or we could have the planning commission see none of it. We could establish different processes based on size. So like Jason mentioned here, the state does allow us to establish an administrative process for smaller subdivisions. He mentioned it for rural communities, but it applies just as well to urban or suburban communities like we are. So we can break it up that way. We've got several options, or lots of options we can pursue in doing this. We can, if there are specific concerns about the types of subdivisions that we're seeing, we can break it down even further, although I'd encourage streamlining and simplifying the process over trying to create a scenario for every foreseeable possibility.
My only concern, Alex, is that we've had 2 very recent, and I guess they would both fall under this category of subdivision requests that we, the council, have denied, that came to us with a positive recommendation from the planning commission.
They had rezones, so they would have come to us
weren't,
anyways.
They weren't subdivisions, they were rezones.
Okay.
There has been a recent subdivision that got a lot of attention, but ultimately was approved, that one on 7100 South. There's been some projects that would have subdivisions follow eventually.
Yeah, I guess that's what I meant. The rezones were for a subdivision.
Rezones would have future subdivisions. Yeah,
yes,
exactly. They wouldn't. That wouldn't change. So even if we tweak this process, the rezone, the rest of the land use review process would still be the same. So
good.
This would only be looking at that subdivision plat process. So when we're looking at changing the ownership and boundary of a lot, that would be affected here. But if somebody wants to come in and do a master plan development, that still follows the process that we have today, or the process that we adopt in the future. If they want to do a rezone, the authority for rezones and text amendments can never be taken away from the council. So that the council will always hold that responsibility. But subdivisions here, just this one type of request is one that has a little bit more flexibility.
Okay.
Matt?
And really, it does come down to this, and it's kind of been said in here too, but we've heard in some other land use situations in other communities about this issue of, is the decision an administrative decision or a legislative decision? And so as Alex was breaking up the 2 different types there, the subdivision portion and the zoning portion of this, that's that breakdown. And that's why some communities can have the administrative side, the staff do all the approvals for like a subdivision. It's because it's just executing on the policies and laws that already exist. And that's why some of those other meetings might not be necessary. And so for the group that was, for the council members who had indicated that having meetings where the public is not able to affect change because they're talking about people, the developers who are looking to do the subdivision are just following the ordinances or policies that have already been established. And that's why the community can't make changes to that. I guess my question is for those council members who are saying, let's not have meeting, or some of the challenges are meetings where the public can't influence the decision. Is your objective that you just want to know about these subdivisions, and so you could be open to the idea of it really being more of an administrative function? Or is it that, I mean, is there a different role that you want, even though it's an administrative decision, or is it really about notification or notifying the public? Do you have any other thoughts on that? I could say it's simpler than how I just walked into that question over 5 minutes, if you want.
I just think it's, moving a lot. I understand that, if they meet it, we have to vote for it. But, the planning commission's unelected, so they don't really have the same, they don't behold to the community the same as everyone else. So I don't know. I don't like it, but that's me. So it just feels like we're punting on hard things, which is fine, in the guise of, of their frustration. But in the end, it's a bunch of people that aren't elected, they're appointed, and, they don't have that same, mantle, I guess, as we do.
Trying to figure out how to respond to that. The planning commission's role is generally intended to be more of an advisory body to the council, and many cities, Midvale included, have assigned additional or have had their councils delegate responsibility to the planning commission. So we in Midvale have delegated approval authority for conditional use permits and similar levels of review to the planning commission. That's not an explicit requirement. That could be changed too. So the planning commission doesn't have to see everything they see today. It could be reduced. There is a set list that they do need to see, both in our ordinance and in the state code. So we can make some changes, but not drastic ones. But this could be another example where either the planning commission is delegated the authority to make those decisions, and ultimately if they make decisions that the council disagrees with can be subject to removal and replacement under the city's existing policies. Or the council could decide that the planning commission doesn't need to play a role in this process and keep the authority to themselves. In the last couple of minutes, I wanted to make sure Glenn gets enough time to talk about his topic, but the process that I think would probably accomplish everything that the council has kind of expressed today would probably be either number 1 or 2 on this alternative paths that Jason has listed. If we put the council first, we have that as a public hearing on the preliminary plat, there's still an opportunity for that public input, still gets noticed. The council can still hear what the public has to say. And then we can either put it as just a staff approval after that, where staff is delegated the responsibility and authority to implement the conditions that the council adopts in their preliminary plat approval. That puts us from 2 or 3 meetings to 1, but still allows the opportunity for public input. Or you could do largely the same thing and have council approve preliminary and have the planning commission approve the final, ensuring that the council's conditions and requirements are put into place in that approval as well. Those are, in my mind, probably the best options based on kind of what I've been hearing tonight. Do you guys have any thoughts on how do those taste? How do those feel? Either you're blown away by my brilliance or you're baffled by my nonsense. I'm not sure which one it is.
Alex, this is Quinn again. I mean, I'm looking at those 2 options. I mean, I'm not opposed to us reviewing the preliminary plats, but again, if it's meeting all the zoning, I mean, I think there were several of us that were saying, why are we having that meeting and taking public comment if we just have to tell people, thanks for your comments, but our hands are tied.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I get what Council Member Brown is saying of people need to be able to express themselves, and I agree with that. I mean, even if we don't have that public hearing, people, if they don't like the development, they're going to let us know, right? But I just don't see the point in having a hearing where everybody gets upset, or they're expressing their frustration, and then we just say, thank you, we approve it because we have no other choice. That's when we start hearing more and more of, well, you don't even listen to us. And I just think part of the education process is more of, you're not having that hearing because the law says we have to approve it. You can let us know if you don't like it, and then we can look at changing the zoning ordinances. That's what we would need to do.
And to piggyback on what you're saying at the end there is just like, you know, a dissent in a court case, although it carries no weight, a lot of times is cited later on in the sort of history of trials. And just like the 5-story that was going to be built in my district that caused a lot of heartache that didn't end up working, they went down to 3 stories. And then because of the public comments, we rezoned TOD and made a TOD overlay. And there's smaller, the height restrictions are greater. And that's because we found out through plenty of public comment on how awful, you know, that TOD zone was. So even though it sucks to hear it, and there's that, we've come away with plenty of positive from it by adjusting our code and things like that, you know, which we just might not ever come to if we never hear complaints or discussions.
Well, but I'm not saying we won't hear those. I think we will if people don't like it. And there's still the open public comment in every meeting, right? So people can come and let us know how they're feeling about things if they don't like it. So I think you can still get that input. I don't think we're taking that away. It's just we're not inviting public comment for that particular action when we can't consider it for that action, right? By allowing them to come at any public comment period, I guess, or the public comment period in any meeting, they can still let us know those things, and we can consider it and say, yeah, we need to look at changing the zoning.
Hey, this is Jason. I just want to throw a thought out there. These are the same residents and the same developments and the same disgruntled feelings about these developments in Salt Lake City, Salt Lake County, Midvale, Taylorsville. So these are not unique circumstances that city council or planning commissioners have to deal with. But at some point, all these other cities have streamlined their processes, and they are addressing their constituents in some way without having those public hearings. So you wouldn't, if you do accept one of these different alternatives, it's certainly with precedent, and there is development all through the valley. So it's working to some extent for other commissioners, other councilors, and other citizens.
Okay, we got 30 seconds. Any parting thoughts before we let Glenn take over? Okay. Well, I appreciate all the feedback and input we've gotten. I'll take the same presentation that we did and the same conversation to the Planning Commission next week and give them kind of a brief overview of what the council is saying here tonight. And then hopefully after that discussion, we can start either putting some pen to paper, or we can bring it back and spend a little bit more time thinking about it. We're open to either possibility. But again, thanks for spending some time with us tonight. And Mayor, I'll give it back to you.
All right. Thanks very much, Alex. Good discussion from everybody. It's hard to believe we're going to have snow falling out there, but it will come. And so, Glenn, what is going to be the city's process for removal of that snow? And what's your plan?
Well, let me share my screen first. Thanks, Mayor. So we know our operation, but we haven't documented it very well. So I tasked Al to work with the managers this year and actually document things a little bit and come up with separated responsibilities. Everybody thinks, or I shouldn't say that, but a lot of people think that when the snow hits, we jump in plows and hit the road and that's all there is to it. But there's a lot of planning that goes in. There's a lot more to it. Each division has their own responsibilities. when it comes to snow clearing. There's lots of trails and sidewalks and et cetera. So having said that, I'm going to turn it over to Al. He's going to go through kind of the meat of the plan. Then when we get to a map and it starts to separate division responsibilities, I'll go over the map for a second and then give each manager a couple of minutes to go over their specific responsibilities, with Roland taking up the last because his is the major plowing responsibility. But please don't hesitate to stop and ask questions. If we run out of time, I've designated the Public Works comments during council to cover anything that we miss here. So can you see my?
Yeah, good plan, Glenn. Let's go for it.
Okay, Al, go ahead.
All right, hello, everyone. Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
All right. The purpose of this plan is to provide for the safe and orderly movement of automobile and pedestrian traffic throughout Midvale City. The procedures presented in this plan outline the way the city's public work department directs city crews in performing snow and ice control on city-owned streets and properties within a 24-hour time period under both ordinary and emergency situations. That plan includes positions and responsibilities, definitions and priority rankings, training requirements, and operational policies and SOPs. Usually, our streets and storm drain will provide public works training every October. We actually have it scheduled, I believe, the 17th of October this year. It's an annual meeting. We train all our new employees, and it's a refresher for our experienced crews. We also, fleet department does all the equipment training. Our lead operators in streets and storm drain provide the on-hand truck training, and all new employees are required to pre-drive their routes to become familiar with their routes and all their hazards and areas such as raised manholes or trees that stick out. We try to go and trim trees in our routes and stuff like that. Some of the limitations in winter storms, usually anything considered 6 inches or more is typically not normal for our area. When we have to deal with this kind of amount of snow, it typically takes longer for the snow clearing to happen. In those cases, we try to get the city done within 24 hours. This usually doesn't happen then. Some of the other limitations include abandoned vehicles or improperly parked vehicles, the traffic congestion, garbage cans, etc. But all these may affect how we do it and how long it takes for us to finish. If snow is forecasted for accumulations or icing, our lead operator is responsible for implementing our ice control program. If less than 2 inches, if less than 2 inches of snow and ice has accumulated, we start our salt only. If more than 2 inches, then we start plowing. That's when we put our plows down. And we don't stop until the entire city is complete. Now, as I mentioned earlier, on a heavy snowstorm, our main priorities, which we'll get to, are our main arterial streets. You will see those on the map that Glenn has provided. But we stay on those until they are cleared. And depending on the amount of snow we get, we could spend a whole 13-hour shift just on the main roads. So it all depends on how severe the storm is. Now, our priorities, of course, our priority ones are mains and arterial roads. Our priority 2 are our collector and residential through streets. And our priority 3 is city-owned parking lots, cul-de-sacs, and dead-end roads. Now, obviously, our main goal is to get all our main and arterial roads open first. It all depends, like I said before, the amount of snow we get. And a lot of times, it'll take a day or two before we get all our dead ends and cul-de-sacs. I don't know if you guys know this, but we have approximately 125 cul-de-sacs and dead ends in our city. And we have one operator responsible for clearing those out. So in a lot of times when we get in there, you get parked cars and you get garbage cans. So it takes a while. And I've seen it up to 2 or 3 days before we get them all cleared. So a lot of this is just patience, but it's not like we don't stop until it's all done. Any questions so far?
I have one. So when you say, less than 2 inches, we salt only. Glenn, Al, I don't know if you know this. Glenn, you made a comment, I don't know, last winter or at some point about we were going to salt all the streets, because in the past it was only the main roads. We didn't salt in the neighborhoods. You wanted to salt more, but we had to give you more budget. Did we give you budget to salt all the streets or no? Maybe that's a Kyle question too.
The last I heard, I don't know who was speaking there, but
That was Councilmember Sperry.
I'm sorry, Councilmember Sperry. Talking with Glenn, we are still planning on salting all the streets. He hasn't mentioned it to me whether we are not. So our goal is to start salting all streets.
So sorry, I was on mute. I did try to answer. We did have an additional request in the, I'll say the pre-COVID budget prep. Then COVID hit and we took it out along with most other things. Okay. We are going to do our best to salt but everything, but it's going to be difficult to forecast storms and forecast the budget, but we will manage our resources as best we can and still salt everything.
I get it. I think, well, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you did salt more this past year than we had done in other years. And at least up in my district, I think it made a difference in the roads, but I understand the trade-off is the expense of the salt really goes up. So I get it.
Last year we borrowed from our operations budget in streets. This year we will not be able to do that, but we will do the best that we can.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm. Where are we at, Al? Here?
I did yeah, there you go.
Okay. So in the beginning there, I talked that each division within Public Works has responsibilities, and there's also some outside entities there in purple that are responsible for some roads and parking areas, specifically UTA there. But we worked with Probin and GIS, and I'm going to have to switch screens here. Okay, can you see the map, sort of?
Yes.
Okay, now the link to this map was sent to you in the presentation and in the plan. However, the link has changed, and I will make sure that you all get that. But you can toggle on and off everybody's responsibilities. And this might be helpful for you if you're getting questions or comments on particular roads that we may not be responsible for. So the purple here would show the county and UDOT, et cetera. The snow removal by area, Roland will get to this, but we've got the city broken out into 5 areas with assigned trucks and assigned operators. And when Al mentioned that new operators and even old operators are to drive their route pre-snow event, you know, they would be area 2, whoever's assigned area 2 would drive that. But I think now we will move into parks. This is so that I don't have to jump back and forth between the 2 screens. The green is parks. Utilities is blue, and we do have a small section outside of the city because we've got our tank property that we need to snow clear. And then the fleet and buildings take care of the city properties through here. So Andrea, I'll switch screens, and if you want to go over your division's responsibilities.
Yep.
Yeah. After I find it.
I can start while he's trying to switch screens here. Currently with Parks Department, we have 7 miles of sidewalk and trail that we are responsible for clearing. We do expect more of that to come on as additional developments begin to come about. We have 2 park operators that clear the snow for these 7 miles with snow shovels, 1 snow blower, 1 ATV with a salter, 1 UTV with a salter, and we do put down ice melt on all of our sidewalks and trails. In getting ready for each season, we work with the fleet department to make sure that all of our equipment is ready to go for the season, make sure that we have enough salt ordered, and then we go over our routes. We also run through our routes prior to snow clearing, just so that each operator knows what their assigned route is. Pertaining to other operations such as burials and stuff like that, that could interrupt some of our snow plowing during the season, but we do try to, during the weekdays, we are clearing continuously depending on the storm. We go through our route. If it snows for the entire day, we just continuously go through that route. If it's on a weekend, we will wait for the storm to subside and go in after that and clear the snow, make sure that everything's ready for school kids to walk to school and walk home from school. But yeah, that's pretty much parks operations. Is there anything else I didn't cover, Glenn?
No, it sounded good. Are there any questions? Okay, Levi?
Well, so I'll be going over the fleet facilities. So we have a mix from different, departments in public works. We got the facilities tech, fleet technician, and we also have a water operator, myself, that helps clear the buildings, sidewalks, and get the parking lots cleared off for you. We generally start at City Hall, which takes us anywhere from 3 to 5 hours, depending how much snow accumulation there is. And we kind of work our way down from there. We'll hit the museum and then the performing arts building. And then Chief's actually been really good about clearing the snow prior to us getting to the police department. I'd say maybe once last year we had to take care of that. Other than that, we didn't touch that at all. So I appreciate him helping out with that. And then we hit public works last. And so, that's, we just kind of dictate how much snow is coming. I speak throughout the night with whomever the lead operator for the snowplow truck is, and he'll let me know how much there. So we kind of know what time to come in. If it's a skiff, we'll come in around, around 6:30. If there's quite a bit, we'll usually start around 4:30 or 5. Let's see what else we got. Some consequence we have with pulling personnel from our departments is take Brian, for instance. He got pulled off the job quite a few times due to minor breaks like hydraulic leaks or whatnot. And that's priority number one, is him taking care of his job duties first. So something like that could take an hour and a half to 2.5 hours to fix, and just puts us a little behind. So we just pull into some of that. And if there's a main building issue, Justin will get pulled to clear that. So let me see. Yeah, and so with Brian, what we're doing right now to get ready for snow season is we're starting with the small equipment, ATVs, snow blowers, getting everything ready and running, and then we'll move on to the dump trucks and adjust the chains, inspect hoses, fluids, and just make sure everything's ready to go, before the storms hit. So that's what we got.
So just so everybody's on the same page, Brian Ortiz is our fleet tech. And during a storm or in planning for a storm, obviously, if any of the plow equipment goes down, that's his first priority. So that would shorten up staffing involved with the city buildings. Plowing is pretty rough on equipment, and breakdowns do occur, and it's just something we have to deal with. Is that any questions up to that point? Okay. Curtis?
Yes, sir. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
So we have roughly 2 miles of sidewalk that the utilities department, the water and sewer department are responsible to plow. Typically we have 2 to 4 operators per snow event. We're kind of fortunate. We have 10, 11 guys in the utility department. So luckily we're not pulling all of our guys off, so we can still do our daily job. But 2 to 4 operators, it depends on the severity of the snow event. So if it's not bad, we'll just put 2 guys on and they'll take a ATV out and they'll plow our sidewalks. If it's a severe event, we'll throw 2 guys on snow blowers and 2 on the ATV, and we'll go out and plow and snow blow the sidewalks. We have 2 snow blowers, 1 ATV and a salter, and then 2 walk behind salt spreaders. And we plow or snow blow all of our sidewalks and put ice melt on all of them. We have some pretty important sidewalks that we do. We kind of do 7200 South, and that serves the homeless shelter and then some school zones. So those are our main priorities on a big snowstorm, is we'll come out and have those ones taken care of very first. And then, like Glenn was saying, we do our water tanks and our lift stations, a couple city-owned sites that we take care of on our own. The utilities department, we are the backup to the snow plows on the big trucks. So if the streets plows for more than 13 consecutive hours, then the utilities department comes in and picks up the snow plowing responsibilities where they left off to clear the streets. So that's pretty much what the utilities department's responsible for. Am I missing anything, Glenn?
No, it was perfect. I think the point up to here is that our resources are spread thin. If there's an equipment breakdown, or if anybody is out sick, and God forbid we have a mass COVID quarantine, this will affect our operations this winter. I just want to make that clear, because we are spread thin. And as Curtis mentioned, there's 10 in the utilities division, and it gets tricky in trying to predict when you need to send people home to get some sleep and to get the other shift out. And Roland will probably go into that a little bit, but I just want to be clear that the other 8 to 10 operators that aren't doing utility sidewalks they're either going to be doing their normal work or be called out later to plow. So that's why they're not available here. And it looks like, Mayor, that we've hit 7, and it's actually a good time to stop, and we can cover the rest of this in the regular meeting.
Okay, that's a good plan too. Thank you. All right, we can pray for snow again now. Okay. This is a public meeting. I want to welcome everybody to the Midvale City Council meeting for the 6th of October. It is an electronic meeting. This meeting does not have any physical location. Pursuant to the Utah Code 52-4-207, as amended by House Bill 5002. I, Mayor Robert Hale, am Chair of the Midvale City Council and hereby make the determination that conducting the meeting with an anchor location presents a substantial risk to the health and safety of those who may be present at the anchor location. This determination is based upon the fact that the city is unable to ensure compliance with the guidelines and public health protocols mandated by the state's current risk phase. As restrictions take place across the state for limiting public gatherings, the city wants to make sure everyone interested in participating in city council meetings can do so. The meeting is broadcast on the following links at YouTube and also the Mixler and city website. If you'd like to provide public comments, please email your comments to L Magnus, that's LMAGNESS @midvale.com, or comment on Midvale City's Facebook page prior to the completion of the public comments portion of the meeting. You may also submit comments if the mayor and city council open a specific agenda item to public comment. These comments will be read aloud in the meeting and will be part of the public record. Again, I want to welcome everybody. And we, by design, open our meeting with a Pledge of Allegiance. And so I'd like, have we got a flag? The chief here, he's not here with us today.
This is Ken Malone, but I have Chief's flag with me, so I think we're good to.
You guys are prepared. Thank you. All right. Ken's going to hold up his flag. Let's all stand and pledge our allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Sure, I'm on mute.
Okay, Rory, would you call the roll, please? See who's here.
Yes, Councilmember Robinson.
Here.
Gettle.
Here.
Brown.
Here.
Sperry.
Here.
And Glover has not made it, has he? Glover will not be able to make it tonight.
Okay. Thank you. We'll now have reports from Unified Police, Ken Malone, and the fire department. Brad is here with us too. I've seen his name. I know I have. Brad Larson, there you are. Okay. Ken, would you report on the police?
Absolutely. So we're coming into the end of the summer months, so we expect our calls to drop down considerably, and they did that in fact in September. Why we don't have the final numbers, looks like we had 908 calls or 908 general offense reports by officers, which is compared to like 1,031 for August. So they dropped down by over 100. We had a couple big deals go on in Midvale during the month. Well, one of those was recently where we had a planned protest in the Midvale Park regarding the Insurgents USA. That protest went off without a hitch. We were prepared. We staged several officers at the Midvale precinct ready to respond if necessary. And fortunately, they didn't have a very good showing, and they assembled in the park for an hour, couple hours, and there were no problems associated with that. We can continue with preparing for the same type of event. I'm confident it's not going to be our last. So we're well prepared to address that. Had a incident occurred on 2nd Avenue where the DEA actually served a search warrant, and I know there's quite a bit of police activity there at that time, and they were able to take several people in custody and completed that long-going investigation. So that's all we have now. I'm happy to address any questions if you have any questions.
Questions for Ken Malone, please. Officer Malone. I noticed, Officer Malone, that we're getting some more transients along the roadways in the shops at Fort Union. And I let Chief know about it one day, and they were taken care of. And then there was a different group up there the next day. So I don't know what's going on, but they're starting to work the shoppers.
Yeah, I know when you notified the chief, we went out there and addressed that, and that was the same individual that we had problems with down in one of the motels. So we addressed that and hopefully got him some resources, but I haven't seen him around since then. And we are ramping up our efforts along the corridor and within the motels and that, addressing a lot of the issues there. And the transients and panhandling of that is one of those issues. So there's going to be an added presence on there and added enforcement.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions for Ken?
I have a quick question. Do you have any information? I've actually tried to receive information on the accident that occurred on Holden Street in the office of Burgess Owens, his headquarters there. Is that a closed investigation for UPD?
It is. As of now, it's a closed investigation.
Okay. And I'd heard rumors that there was actually a federal investigation into that. Do you know anything about that? Obviously not the details, but whether that's true.
I can't confirm that there was an investigation or not. I know there was an inquiry by I think it was just preliminary to see if there was a concern to start investigating. I do not believe they actually opened one. I can see for certain one way or the other.
Okay, so probably just election year conspiracy theories, just kind of.
Exactly. The fact that it hit the election headquarters of a prominent politician.
Yeah. And that building is so tucked away back there. It is kind of odd that a vehicle would find itself there, but
yeah,
stranger things have happened, I assume.
Yeah, based on our investigation, there's no concern there, and there was no reason to believe it was targeted towards Burgess Owens.
Okay. All right. Thanks for that.
Yeah.
Other questions? All right, Officer Malone, looks like you got off easy tonight.
Thank you.
Yeah, good work for you and all of your crew.
Appreciate it.
Okay, Chief Larson, what have you got for us tonight?
Thank you, Mayor, council members. It's always good to be with you. If you have a hard time hearing me, let me know. Have quite a few things that happened in September, and I'd like to highlight some of them, and I'll try to be as brief as I can. I would like to try something a little different rather than just kind of giving the same old report, maybe provide some visuals to give you some idea of what I'm talking about, if that's okay. I'd like to go ahead and share my screen. Let me find the right
right part. There we go. That visible to everyone? Okay. As I mentioned, we've had a very, very busy month. I talked about this a little bit last council meeting, but our deployments to California and Oregon in September, UFA and several other fire departments responded to 4 EMAC requests. That stands for Emergency Management Assistance Compact, and 1 urban search and rescue deployment to California and Oregon. And our FEMA urban search and rescue team, Utah Task Force 1, and our fire personnel played really important roles in assisting Oregon and California in the devastating wildfires. Oregon was hit especially hard for a short period. We had a total of 55 personnel that were on those deployments, yet we were able to maintain full coverage here at home, here in Midvale. And we had a lot of firefighters that remained here at home that were filling in when needed. And we were really happy to see that. They're very dedicated individuals, and they jumped right in to make sure spots were filled. All forces have returned the first week of October, which was last week. And we're going to continue to support UFA deployments as needed. And I think the huge benefit of this is that should something devastating happen here, especially Salt Lake County or somewhere close, we'll have the support of California and Oregon, which we've always been readily available to help them. These are just a few shots that some of the UFA crews took in some of the areas that they were at. There you see on the left side, they're doing a little bit of backburn. They've cleared a swath there on the lower right, and they're backburning towards the fire. The strategic plan update, we held our first stakeholder meeting September 17th and 19th with many in attendance. Mayor Hale and Matt attended the first session. We're so happy to have them there and their participation. It really helps us to identify our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and challenges. Mayor, city council members, business leaders, representatives from local school districts, and others are invited to these meetings, other stakeholders in the cities and communities. 2 more meetings were held, one today by Zoom, and another, or actually it was yesterday and today. And to make up for the canceled meetings we had that week of that high wind event, as you remember. These are just some of the topics that we talk about during the discussions. And again, all of these topics, we give a good overview of UFA services, and then we ask for the group that's there, the mayor and Matt and others, what our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and challenges are. And from that, we develop our strategic plan, our budget, to help us serve our communities in the best way possible. Fire Prevention Week. This is a flyer that I placed in the lobby at Midvale City Hall, available for the citizens. There was another there giving parents direction on how to keep their kids safe in the kitchen and some do's and don'ts. Fire Prevention Week is started Sunday and it goes through Saturday. It's a national thing that happens every year, usually the first week in October. Serving up fire safety in the kitchen is the theme this year. The majority of single family fires in the home start in the kitchen. In fact, NFPA statistics say that 44% of all home fires start in the kitchen, and that's where most of the deaths and injuries occur. It's critical because over 70% of the fire deaths nationally occur in single family homes. And so every year we try to give a big push on fire safety and different topics. If you get a chance, go to NFPA's website, www.nfpa.org. They have a lot of flyers and bulletins, some that you can print out for children to have activities with to teach them fire safety. I'm going to print up one of those activity sheets and take it with me to the road home meeting tomorrow so that they can hand them out to the children there. Light up the night. I don't know if anyone's seen Fire Station 125 and 126 lit up in red. We do this every year for the national, in remembrance of our fallen firefighters. Back in Washington, D.C., this happens as part of National Fallen Firefighters Memorial Ceremony. So all stations in the UFA Fire District have lit their stations in red for that first week, which was last week, to help honor the fallen firefighters. I do have a picture of your station 125 there, lit up in red. And it's really kind of a neat thing that that we do every year. I think we just started this last year. Very quickly, new recruit process. We had 641 people register for the written captain's test. Let's see, let me close the share here. And 397 ended up participating in the written test. So 90 are going to move forward in the next interview process. From there, 26 will begin background checks, and recruit camp starts in February of 2021. The captain's process, we had 50 candidates. This is really crucial, I think, for your stations, because the captains are the leaders at the station. They're the ones that take charge and command at the fires and the medical emergencies day in and day out, the ones that interact with your citizens. And so we're really looking for top quality candidates. We've had quite a few retires here the last year. So that is going to be held early this month, the written test for those 50 candidates. Later in the month, this month, the 27 will move forward. And from there, we interview them and put them in a ranked list that we use as part of the selection process for the next 2 years. Real quickly, I think, I don't see Kane's not here tonight, so I'll just quickly mention our launching of VersaTerm. That's a dispatch program. This is really going to benefit the citizens of Mid-Bell. It's new dispatching software that's a direct dispatch. That means the closest unit is dispatched. Let's say station 110 up the road from station 126 is just coming back from the hospital or some training, and a call comes in that they're a couple blocks away from. They're much closer than 126. They're going to be dispatched immediately, which is going to save a ton of time. It's the same UFA paramedics, same training, same level of service. So nothing's lost there. It's just a quicker response time. Also with the old system, I'll just say this quickly. Let's say a call came in South Mid-Bell on a cell phone, and the cell call was transferred to a tower in Sandy. So Sandy transfers the call to Salt Lake City, and Salt Lake City, because Sandy has contracted with Salt Lake City for dispatch. So Salt Lake City then transferred that call to VEC, which would dispatch a UFA unit. Now, Salt Lake City can directly dispatch a UFA unit and save some critical time instead of transferring it to VEC, and vice versa. VEC gets a call, they can immediately dispatch a Salt Lake City unit in their area instead of having to transfer it to their dispatch. So it saves some very valuable time, and it really serves our Mid-Bell community in a very direct and positive way, saving that valuable time. So that's been launched, and so far I've heard that it's going very well. That's my report. I think I covered everything, and I hope I was brief. So I'd be happy to answer any questions if I can.
I might express our appreciation, Chief Larson, to the UFA crews that have gone to California, Louisiana, and Oregon and provided those services there that stretched their resources beyond their limits. And it's wonderful that we had an ability to backfill behind them. Nothing worse than being in a fire storm like they've been in those states and have too few people. And so I appreciate everything that you've done there. It was a yeoman's job of doing the work, and I understand other departments have their crews down there now, and so we're just trying to do our best to save that set of states from conflagration from one end to the other. Thank you.
You bet. Thank you, Mayor.
Any questions for Chief Larson or about UFA or anything? Okay, thanks,
Thank you.
Chief.
Thank you.
We have a proclamation declaring October as Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Rory, can you tell me where that is?
That should be in your packet, Mayor, right at the beginning.
I'm looking at the minutes from this morning's meeting, so give me a second here.
It should be the first, well, after the, let's see. No, we didn't have anything in there from Glenn, so it should be right after the agenda.
All right, let's see. I'm at the right spot now. Okay. Make it big so I can read it now. Okay, this is a proclamation by Midvale City. Whereas every year, too many Americans are touched by the pain and hardship caused by breast cancer, a disease that among women is not only one of the most common cancers, but also one of the leading causes of cancer-related death. During National Breast Cancer Awareness Month, we honor all those who lost their lives to breast cancer, and we recognize the courageous survivors who are still fighting it. For these individuals and for their loved ones who give their unwavering support during the most trying times, we recommit ourselves to the essential and necessary work of forging a future free from cancer in all its forms. Whereas hundreds of thousands of Americans will be diagnosed with breast cancer this year, and tens of thousands will lose their battle with the disease. Although both women and men can have breast cancer, women are at higher risk. Women with a family history of breast cancer or those who are older or obese are also more likely to be diagnosed with breast cancer. All women must be encouraged to find out if they are at increased risk and to learn more about recommended screenings by speaking with their healthcare providers. Early detection and treatment can save lives. And whereas critical research efforts over time have yielded great progress in how breast cancer is diagnosed and treated, which has produced a steady increase in survival rates for those suffering from this disease, and it is crucial that we keep building on these successes. This year, the National Cancer Institute launched the largest study of its kind to investigate the role of genetic and biological factors in breast cancer risk among African American women who have a higher risk of dying from breast cancer. Now, therefore, I, Robert M. Hale, Mayor of Midvale City, and the Midvale City Council, do proclaim the month of October 2020 as Breast Cancer Awareness Month throughout the city of Midvale. Let us stand in solidarity with breast cancer survivors and thank the countless advocates, medical professionals, researchers, and caregivers who dedicate their lives to fighting for a world without breast cancer. And together, let us carry out the mission to cure cancer once and for all. In witness thereof, I have hereunto set my hand and affixed the seal of the city of Midvale this 6th day of October, 2020. And this was adopted on this 6th day of October, 2020. Signed the mayor and each council member, Dustin Gettle, Paul Glover, Quinn Sperry, Bryant Brown, and Heidi Robinson. So we'll now move into public comments. And again, I want to remind anyone that wants to make a public comment to please email your comments to lmagness, LMAGNESS at midvale.com, or comment on Midvale City's Facebook page prior to the completion of this public comments portion. So I'm going to ask Laura, have you any public comments this evening?
I have one public comment, Mayor. The public comment is from Mr. Wade Walker. I'd like to thank the city staff and city council, particularly council member Bryant Brown, for getting stop signs installed at the intersection of Roosevelt Street and Altaview Drive and turning that intersection into a four-way stop. Roosevelt Street has become a very busy street with new developments along Center Street, and the new four-way stop will help keep that street a neighborhood residential street of a major thoroughfare. With several young children living in houses along Roosevelt and several other children using Roosevelt as a walking route to and from Midvale Elementary and Midvale Middle Schools, keeping these residential streets safe is of utmost importance. So again, thank you for installing those new stop signs and creating a four-way stop along Roosevelt. Wade Walker. And that is the only comment I have, Mayor.
Okay. Thank you very much, Laura. Next, we will turn to council reports. Invite Councilmember Heidi Robinson to be first.
I have nothing tonight, but thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Paul Glover is not in attendance, as I understand. Is that correct? So we'll next go to Councilmember Bryant Brown.
Yeah, I just have a quick comment. I just want to say I'm pretty pleased with the progress of Utopia. If you guys haven't had them come into your area yet, you would be surprised at the ability for them to work nonstop, 10 or 12 hours a day. It's the hardest working group I've ever seen. It's almost, they're there in your yard and then they're gone within 12 hours. So I'll say I get a lot of compliments daily that this is moving forward and they're glad that such an area is being covered. So, we're looking forward to being able to use Utopia. I know it's still maybe a few months out, but I do want to give kudos to those workers. They seem to be relentless and that's probably what's needed to undertake such a big project. So we appreciate it in our area. That's all I have.
That's a great comment, Councilmember Brown. Thank you. I went through after the windstorm and I was amazed in the south side of the city to see all the orange pipe loops all over the streets and intersections and things that you mentioned. There were people, it seemed like, on every corner digging holes, getting things set. So they've put a great job and great effort to get that done. Okay, Councilmember Gettle, please.
Well, there's just been no news at all since our last meeting. That's a joke. It seems like every day something else has happened, either locally, nationally, or statewide. But the only thing I wanted to report on tonight just briefly was a little bit more in depth of the protest that happened on Friday night in the Midvale City Park. I think the chief did a great job of keeping us informed as to what was going on over there. We were in constant communication with the chief Friday night, and Officer Malone, I know, is on the video call here today. I'm not sure if you were involved in that. Sounds like you were, but it was how these events should go, in my opinion. You know, a lot of cities would just be fine if they never had a protest like this occur, but you know, we were fortunate, I guess, I don't know, to be chosen. This individual apparently doesn't have ties to Midvale City, but chose Midvale City Park for one reason or another. So it sounds like, you know, he and his group got to do their thing pretty peacefully. And it sounds like, you know, our folks in the city, UPD, and I think Glenn, you guys were involved too with Public Works, just to make sure everything was going well for the city park. So again, you know, maybe some other cities can take this instance and use that to figure out, you know, how to approach these events as they are likely to occur in the future as well. So kudos to everyone who planned far ahead, Matt, Kane, mayor, council. Yeah, it was just a very pleasing group effort on all of our parts that I'm pretty proud to say resulted in nothing else being in the news. So that was great.
They had their freedom of speech to say anything they wanted, freedom of assembly. All of that's important. Thank you.
And if you listen to their Twitter feed, they did say all that they wanted to say.
Okay. Very good. Thank you, Councilmember Gettle. Councilmember Sperry.
I have nothing this evening.
Okay. Thanks to all of our council members. It's good to have feelers out throughout the city. I just have a couple of things. I want to make sure it's tomorrow. Councilmember Gettle and Sperry are planning on attending the Flourish building dedication there on Center Street. Is that right?
Mayor, I have a doctor's appointment at 10 a.m. So I'm going to do my very best to try to make it.
I am also a maybe.
What was that, Councilmember Sperry? I missed your comment.
I said I'm a maybe on that.
Okay.
I've got another commitment in the morning, and if it finishes, I'll be there. If it runs long, I'll have to miss it.
Okay.
What time is that again? Do you know off the top of your head, or Laura, do you know? I know I could look at my email, but.
I think it was.
Yeah, the time is 11 a.m. But they're not actually going to be doing the blessing until 11:45. So I would say get there around 11:30, 11:45.
Okay, I will do my best based on my doctor's appointment.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. I was all scheduled for it, and then UPD called a semi-annual budget. I'm grateful I have some city council members that can fill in. Okay, then I hope that you are all alerting your contacts through your districts about the bulky waste that's going on this month. We've had a hiatus until we establish the monthly, or excuse me, the twice annual. And this month is bulky waste. And when I was outside today picking up mail from the mailbox, the truck came down my street. I waved at the guys and they turned around and went back out, and I waved at them going out. So they're out there looking for things. So this is a good time to unload those tree limbs from the windstorm, junk and garbage that you might have been storing. If you have it properly containerized, they'll take it all within conditions. Right, Glenn? Okay.
Exactly.
That's all I had. Matt, is there a city manager report you'd like to give to us?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I I just had one thing I wanted to cover, and I'm going to turn a little time over to Nate and to Laura. I just wanted to remind the council members or inform them that we had previously discussed about the closure of 7200 South from 700 West to I-15 in order to support the quicker completion of the construction going on that street. When last we spoke, we had talked about there being a 1 month closure of the westbound traffic, leaving the eastbound traffic open, and then after that month flipping so that the eastbound traffic would be closed, but the westbound traffic would be open. We had discussed that starting in September, but clearly we're into October now. UDOT released an updated schedule indicating that those closures would begin with the first direction in mid-October going through mid-November. And then the subsequent closure would then follow that right away from mid-November to mid-December. Clearly that's gonna, cause a little bit of some travel challenges during that time frame. But again, UDOT's hope is that this will make it so that we can finish this project up that's been going on for a long time much quicker. UDOT is providing communication with regards to this, and we are supporting them in getting the word out about those closures. For what I've seen is that in their communication, they also have some maps showing where the detours for folks wanting to use that street, where they could be detoured in order to get to their locations. So the biggest thing I'm just reminding you of is that closure will be coming here in the next couple weeks, and that'll continue for 2 months, but then hopefully they should be able to open those roads back up.
Matt, do you know how services like Google Maps or if you're an iPhone person, which I am not, Apple Maps, Waze, how did those services get alerted to such a large construction process? Because, obviously the best place to alert people is when they're trying to, use a direction service and it says, oh, no, you can't take this road.
I don't actually know the answer to that, but I'll find out.
Okay.
Justin, this is probably not fact, but I would imagine that Google has contact with UDOT and the other major, transportation agencies in this city, and that's how they get it. But I don't know, and we can research it.
That makes sense. Yeah, I would like to know for sure, just to make sure that happens. I think that'll eliminate a lot of stress especially for people who aren't used to traveling in this area.
Okay. Yeah, well, I'll look into it. I mean, not only because you asked, but now I'm curious about how that gets on there.
It's usually done by crowdsourcing. So like Waze is typically crowdsourcing. So drivers who are driving upload that information, and that's how the information gets uploaded to Waze. It's all through crowdsourcing.
Okay. Okay. Thank you for comments and questions there. Anything else on 7200 South? Okay. The only other thing I guess I had for myself is that I think there's 86 days left in 2020. So I think we can make it that long. I count it down all the time. I always like to remind people of that because I feel like we'll get through that psychological shift into 2021 and it'll all get better after that. With that, and speaking of good news, Nate has some great news about our grant program that we're providing for businesses.
Yeah. So I just wanted to give you an update on the grant program that council approved during the last council meeting. So to date, there's been 23 applications. We've awarded 17 grants to local businesses for $85,000. We had set the initial cap at 100,000, but if we had good response, we talked about going up to 150. And so we've recommended with this good response going up to 150. And then we've also extended the deadline with the county being able to extend the deadline from October 1st to October 12th. So that gives a lot, another 11 days. But with that, we could go up to another 13 more grants for a total of 30 grants, which I based on the response we've seen so far, seems very doable and likely. So far, we've got about 6 food or restaurant related grants, a few hospitality grants, and then about 7 grants that are related to just retail businesses, but a very diverse set of businesses that have applied. So that's going really good. And we're grateful to be able to get the CARES Act funding out to local businesses. And these are all local Midvale businesses. So really good effort by Chris and Laura in getting the message out to the businesses and putting together those flyers and those announcements, and then also to Kate for putting the program together and working with the business owners as they call in and submit their applications. So we set a goal of being able to get back to them within 4 days, and I believe we've been able to do that on being able to actually say within 4 days of them submitting a grant, they've been awarded the grant, or if they weren't, why they weren't. So very successful program. Great that we were able to put it together so quickly, and great to get that money out into the hands of our local businesses. Any questions on that?
Nate, real quick question. So with the federal money that was awarded in the very beginning, there was a little bit of controversy with folks like, I forget who, maybe Jimmy John's, I don't know, these big, large national chains that were applying for this federal money that were still, doing very good business and didn't necessarily need that money. Shake Shack was one of them, I think. Are we doing anything to get it to the businesses that need it rather than, someone who hasn't been impacted or, kind of has the reserves to not necessarily need?
Yeah, so one of the criteria is that they have to show that their business has been impacted. So they actually provide their ledger or whatever it is that they were proving before COVID came into place, and then where they're at now, so we can actually see a loss in their business. So we are checking that. As far as reserves, I don't know how you check whether they have a lot of financial reserves, but we are checking to see that they've been impacted.
I do have a slight concern with that, just because, most businesses can show you that they lost money during COVID, but does that necessarily mean that they need extra money from the city government is another issue entirely for me. I'm sure the manager of a McDonald's can show you that, his business isn't where it was before COVID, but, they're not closing up.
The good thing is that all the businesses that have applied, we don't have any chains that have applied. So these are all local, unique sort of Midvale businesses. Doesn't totally answer your question, but at least.
Are we at least then going to make public the businesses who were recipients of any money? Let me rephrase that. Can we make sure that we do? I'm not necessarily saying we need to disclose the amount, but I would like to see the businesses that we gave this money to. And I think people who live in Midvale and pay taxes to Midvale would probably like to see that as well.
Yeah, we put in there that it's a public disclosure. So when they submit an application, then that's potential public information. So we could make those awards public. The award cap is $5,000, so all of the businesses have been awarded the same amount, which is $5,000. But at the end of it, we can, or maybe in the middle of it, we can make a list available of who received grant funding.
And I think because Councilmember Glover is not here, I'm playing the part of Councilmember Glover today with these questions.
Thanks.
Other questions for Nate? Great. Thank you, Nate, and thank you to your team too for working on this program and getting it out there so quickly. Again, thank you to Chris, Kate, and Laura for their part in both administering and communicating on it. The next part is I was going to have Laura is going to discuss an upcoming event and then also some communication methods that we're constantly updating. So go ahead, Laura.
Thank you, Matt. I first wanted to go over really quick, just as a reminder for people who are watching Facebook, the curbside bulky waste program. If your regular garbage day is on Monday, then we would have picked up bulky waste on October 5th. If your normal day is Tuesday, tomorrow is your bulky waste pickup on October 7th. If your normal day is Wednesday, October 12th is your bulky waste pickup day. And if your normal day is Thursday, then October 14th is your normal pickup, is your bulky waste pickup day. So I just wanted to make sure we had this on Facebook for everyone to see. And then I wanted to talk about, as Matt said, an upcoming event that we have. This is our event that we partnered with UPD and Choose Gang Free. We're real excited about this. It's going to be social distancing, very safe. We're going to collect candy from all of the different individuals who want to participate, and UPD is going to wrap the candy up in bags, and we will hand the bags individually to the people who come through the drive-through. So it's not a typical trunk or treat where everyone has their trunks decorated and they will be giving you candy from their trunks. Instead, you will receive a big bag of candy for each child in your car, and we will have trunks that are decorated, but they won't be passing out the candy. You'll get the candy from UPD, who will be wearing masks and gloves, so it's very, very safe. And we encourage everyone to dress up in their costumes. And Choose Gang Free is the big organizer of this event. They're very excited about this, and we're partnering with them. We are going to be starting the event over off of Center Street. You would go down Center Street and you would turn south onto Bingham Junction Boulevard, and the cars will line up along Bingham Junction Boulevard all the way to where it turns around and it hits Main Street again, or 7th West. And we're real excited about this. It's Saturday, October 24th from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. And we encourage everyone to participate. If you would like to have a trunk decorated and participate that way, you must pre-register, and you could go on our website, midvallecity.org/Halloween, to find out how to register and have your trunk displayed in the drive-through. So we encourage our council members to have their trunks displayed. That would be a lot of fun. Does anyone have any questions about this particular event before I move on to the next one? Okay, great. I wanted to let everyone know, since this is really important for our community to get their flu shots, that the CBC, or Community Building Community Health Clinic, Community Clinic, is having a free flu shot clinic on October 10th, this Saturday, from 8 a.m. to noon. And they encourage anyone to come out. Walk-ins are welcome, or you can give them a call to make an appointment ahead of time at 801-574-6172. They're located right on Center Street, just east of the train tracks. Free flu clinic, very important to get your flu shots. And I also wanted to let the council know that I have updated our website to list all of these online services that are available, because we're encouraging people to not come into the office to be able to do any of the services with the city. We really want them to be able to go online and work with our employees online to prevent the spread of COVID. So we have this new banner that's on our front page of our website, and the banner links over to this long list of services that are available online. So we encourage everyone to go online to see what's available, so that you don't have to come into the offices. And that's all I had, Matt, unless there's any questions from any of the council members or the mayor.
Great. Hearing none, Mayor, that concludes the city manager's report.
Well, thanks to all of you. That sounds like an exciting month coming up. We'll now go to department reports, and I think here's where Glenn wants to finish up his snow program and all other things he hasn't reported on yet.
Are we back up and running?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Are.
Okay, so we discussed kind of the ancillary divisions and some of the sidewalks and other properties that we need to handle. And now Roland's going to go into the meat of the plow plan. And go ahead, Roland. You might be on mute. Nope. Yep. Uh-oh.
How about now?
There we go.
Sorry about that. I was hitting the mute button on the square. It wasn't working.
You're good. Are you ready to go?
I am ready.
Yeah.
Okay, so my name's Roland Garcia. I'm over the streets and storm drain department, and I'm in charge of some of the snow plowing here. So I'm going to go over what I'm in charge of. So typically, we're going to talk about a typical storm. So we monitor the reports, right? The severity and the timing. We determine the place and staff. We put them on alert, and I'll go over that in just a second. We prep all of our equipment, things we have to adjust to get ready before the actual storm. So the alert is what we do is we watch the storm and we watch people tell the future about how much snow's coming in. And basically from there, we determine what guys we put on snow alert. So we have an on-call guy. He'll go out, depending on when the snowstorm hits, he will go out first and check all a couple of the mains that we check, mainly on the east side, that usually gets more snow than the west side. So he'll go check up there. And then if it warrants for salting, plowing, he'll be the first one out on the street, checking whenever the storm should hit. So if it hits at the end of the day at a regular work day, we will actually send guys home. So we won't burn up their time at work. We'll send them home a little early so they can actually get some sleep before the storm, which would be the red team. So he will go out, adjust to whatever we need to do. He'll call in the lead. He will call in the lead for the storm. Sorry, I was on the wrong page. He'll call in the lead for the storm. And with that being said, his name's Barry War. He will actually determine if we need to bring in more plows. And obviously we have priorities where we start on the actual, the mains. And if it warrants for 12 hours, then he'll bring in more and more guys as it needs fit. If he can't keep up with the mains, him and the first on call will get in our big trucks and run east side and west side mains. And if they can't keep up, we'll call in more staff as it comes on. During the storm, we want to look into how we actually judge and we take initiative on what's coming, what we need to do with our employees on when they need to come out or just adjust them on their actual day work. On if the storm's going to hit hard in the evening, obviously they'll go home early. We continue monitoring the storm throughout. We're, like Al said in his first part of it, is we don't stop until the storm's done. We have priority streets and we hit those first, and then neighborhoods. And I'll go over the cost of the actual plowing and salt. We keep a close contact between myself and the lead operators, so I can relay this information to Glenn on the actual things that are happening during the storm. Not all the storms go as predicted. Some peter out real quick, and some actually continue to run longer than what they anticipated. So depending on that, that's how we keep in close contact with my lead operator. I don't hesitate to come out and check on things to make sure things are up to par and moving right along. We do things on the fly. The problems happen where we have to call in Levi's operator, Millhouse. He'll come in the middle of the night and fix broken down snowplow trucks just so we can continue moving. And all these things are not on a checklist of what we do every storm. They actually come, we take them, we work on the fly. After the storm, we review everything that we've done. Once we can get the streets opened up, plowed, neighborhoods plowed, we review everything that we've done that night, and then we actually take an opportunity to see where we can actually be better at what we do. We've done this for a few years. We kind of got a program down per se that we do, but at the same time, there's always room for improvement. So we'll get together as a crew and we'll talk over things that can help, things that went good, things that didn't work good. And then, so I want to look at the, so basically the typical storm is we'll have the lead operator go out when the first on call calls them back in. I just wanted to go over that, and then the alerts, the guys will wait until they're called in, but they are on a snow alert. What the snow alert does also is we ask them not to indulge in any alcoholic beverages because they're going to be on alert. So if it is the weekend, there's snow coming, you know, there's different things that we ask them, hey, you're going to have to refrain on some things in life due to work. And so I'm going to look at now the actual staff we have. So we have one division manager. We have two lead operators, which we do is actually one for the first 13 hours, one for the second 13 hours. So it would be Curtis's water guy. He'll be leading his crew, but we have a lead on our side. We have 7 operators total in the plow trucks. So I'll go over each plow truck. So we have two 10-wheelers. These are our big trucks. These hold roughly 6 to 7 tons of salt. And when I say that the first on call goes out, and when they decide that, hey, we need to call in more trucks, one big truck's on the west side, one big truck's on the east side. With the amount of salt they hold, it's less time having to come back and fill up. So it's more efficient. So the two 10-wheelers will go, and then we have 4 bobtails with salters. As the storm gets the better of the two 10-wheelers, we will actually call in the bobtails, and the bobtails, which we gang plow, where we run more than one plow down the road. It helps because if we just run one truck down the road, it leaves a big windrow, and then there's potential for an accident because somebody will run into that windrow. If we can get a couple trucks on one road, we wipe the road clean in one shot, and it's safer for everybody. That's if the storm's bad enough where we call in more of the salters. We got a one pickup truck. It's a 1 ton. We actually put a plow and a salter on them. This is the one that does the cul-de-sacs. And then we also use the backhoe to help when that one particular truck is behind with the cul-de-sacs. We have one loader we use that stays at the yard with the salt because the 10-wheelers needs the big loader to fill up the salt. The materials we use is salt, blades, and obviously ice melt that they throw on different sidewalks. But on our end, I just want to go over a typical 12-hour storm. On average, our big trucks hold 6 to 7 tons of salt. On a 12-hour storm, they could run possible 4 to 6 loads of salt in that 12 hours. That averages anywhere from 28 to 42 tons for one storm for one truck. And our bobtails, which are the smaller ones that hold salt, they hold about 4 tons of salt. Anywhere from 6 to 8 truckloads in a 12-hour shift. And so that's anywhere from 24 to 32 tons. So just on an average 12-hour storm with all our trucks out, we're looking at 150 to 200 tons of salt. So that covers our salt, and this last year, we did use quite a bit more salt than we have in the past with running more salters and salt in the neighborhoods. And with more salt, it's more cost, and then obviously running those type of things in the neighborhoods we have to plow. After the snow sits for a few days, you guys notice it starts to ice up, gets harder. It's harder on the trucks. It's more wear on the actual blade. So the actual blade cost for one of the big trucks is about $250. It lasts about 20 to 25 hours. So roughly 2 storms.
Hey, Roland,
Yes.
will you explain what a blade and a mow board is?
Okay, so the blade is what's on the front of the plow, what everybody sees, but it bolts to the mow board on the plow truck. And if we wear out the actual blade before it hits the mow board on the plow truck, then we're into big money to replace the mow board on the plow. So the blade protects the mow board. So we have to watch that blade as it wears out. We have to replace it before it hits the mow board, or otherwise we're into it a lot more cost. So on a 10-wheeler, the average cost is about $250. It takes about an hour to change. These bolts get rusted on there from the salt and stuff, so we got to torch them off, and then we can't do it with one guy. It takes a couple guys to get in there and unbolt and hold that up safely without getting hurt, because I would say the plow blade probably weighs a couple 100 pounds. It's too much on one guy's back bent over trying to pull these off. And the bobtails, so we only have 2 10-wheelers, which are the big trucks, and then we have 5 bobtails, and they run anywhere from $210 to $218 per blade. Same thing, they last a little longer, about 25 to 30 hours. They just have less weight, less down pressure, and same thing. It takes about an hour and a half to replace those, and those are some of the things we typically go through when there's a big storm. We don't want to be changing plow blades during the storm. So we'll go through and replace things that if they get within an inch, we're going to replace them. And so we like to do these things per storm, get our trucks ready. So we're not doing this while the snow's building, where we're fighting traffic and we're in the shop replacing blades. So these are some of the things we do prior to the storm. And moving on to the follow-up that we do with the storms, we follow up with the people do a lot of call-ins. So our number one purpose is our safety concerns, right? The immediate things, and usually it's the police calling them in. Hey, there's this bad road. Any particular, we know the hot spots that really freeze up. So even if we plowed the snow all night, if it's cold enough night, even though the snow's gone, that melting snow, that next morning they're going to freeze, and then usually we get cars slipping on these particular hills. So those type of things are safety concerns that we get to first. The police will sometimes call them in, or if they got spots where they can't get out. We also will go and actually plow the police department too, so they get in and out. That's one of our mains. And then we'll look into the actual concerns of the residents. These will be documented and put into our iWork system, which will create a work order. With that work order, what we do is we'll be able to go through it and then document what we did to fix the situation. But everyone will be documented and obviously take actions on that particular one. And but definitely the safety is our concern, and the residents will get to it when the snow subsides. We have any questions on this so far? That's pretty much all I got. If I'm missing something, Glenn, you let me know.
No, that was terrific. Thank you, Roland. Again, if there's any questions, because we're about to wrap up, we'd love to hear them. If not, then maybe we covered everything. The takeaways here are that there's a lot that goes into just one storm event. I mean, we started planning a month and a half ago, and we're still kind of wrapping things up here. Know that we're out there doing our best, know that we're trying to use our resources as best we can, but there's very little room for unforeseen things jumping up that tend to get in our way. A machine breaks down, or severity of the storm. There's just so many variables. But I just thought it would be a good overview for council to see, our plowing operation. So if there's no other questions, I think we're done.
Hey, Glenn, real quick, do you think there's any, obviously 2020 and the beginning of 2021 are much different than last year's snow season, just based on the amount of people who are not rushing to work in the morning, and the children who aren't necessarily learning in the school, they're learning at home. So is our snow plan going to be impacted in any way based on those things? Because I know, most of what we do with snow events is so that people can get to work when it happens during the week and get their kids to school.
Yeah, there'll probably be some pros and cons with that. There'll probably be less traffic on the road for us to deal with, but there will probably be more parked cars because people are home.
Okay.
But those are, that's stuff that we'll look out for.
Yeah, keep us updated. I would like to see, just what any differences are in that. If it's making it easier for you guys overall or harder for you guys overall, I'd be curious.
Okay. All right, we'll watch that and report back.
Hey, Glenn, I have a question.
Okay.
Can you just do that whole thing again? I missed it.
Sure.
I'm kidding. It's great. I'm sure you guys will be on it. Hopefully it's not too crazy.
Yeah, I don't want to jinx things, but I think we're in for a winner. So,
Thanks,
okay.
Glenn.
Thank you. Thanks, Roland. Good job. Thanks, Al. Really quickly, I forgot to do this earlier. I want to thank Probin and GIS. Did a lot of work in the map. Al did a lot of coordination with GIS and the managers. They put a lot of work into this, and I appreciate it. So thank you.
You've got a great crew, Glenn.
Yes, we do.
Thank you. We'll now move into a public hearing. I'd like a motion to open up a public hearing.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to open up a public hearing to consider rezone of 0.21 acres of property located at 847 West Center Street from regional commercial RC to multifamily residential medium to high density zone RM25. Jason Binks, would you fill us in on that, please?
Yeah, good evening, Council. Jason Binks with Planning Department. I'm going to share my screen for this rezone at 847 West Center Street. The applicant is Dale Bennett of Bennett Properties LLC. And he's requesting a rezone from regional commercial to multifamily residential. The department sent out 32 public notices to the 32 property owners within the required area, and we've received no comments about this particular request. And the Planning Commission saw this on September 9th and are recommending approval to the City Council. Here's the vicinity map. It's that blue square. It's 0.21 acres. And it has been zoned regional commercial since our earliest zoning maps, 1983, and it has not been developed as commercial. That's Center Street that you see right there to the north, but there is a frontage road that accesses 6 properties at 7725 South. And this property was immediately adjacent to the Sharon Steel Superfund site. So it has not been developed since our earliest records. It's important to note that, again, there it is, the blue square. It's adjacent to 4 different zones. So to the north is Bingham Junction, Jordan Bluffs to the west, and then region multifamily to the south, and then form-based code to the, or rather regional commercial to the east. Well, why that's important is because this request is not creating an island of a different zone, but it's just extending what is already there to the south. Show a picture here looking southeast. That's the property there undeveloped with the green fence there. The photographs is taken from Center Street. That's the frontage road there, looking southeast. Let me give you another vantage point. This is looking about west-southwest. If you see that red car in the center, it's the same car that's on the edge of the picture here. The city engineer doesn't think that it's prudent to put an access way there from Center Street, mostly because there's significant slope there, the speeds along Center Street. There's a lot of utilities in that strip there, and there's some difficult turning movements already here on Holden Street. I mean, it is what it is. When Center Street widens like that, you'll get these things in older areas of cities like this. Ordinance requires that whenever there's a rezone, the applicant proposes a concept plan of what he would put there if this was approved. And Mr. Bennett, I've seen more recent plans, although he didn't provide those to us. We just discussed them. It's a duplex facing west, 3-story duplex right there on the corner. And I'll let Mr. Bennett talk about that proposal. But if it was approved as RM25, then the duplex would come in and be approved through a building permit. The property is in 2 different areas in the general plan, the Main Street opportunity area and the Jordan Bluffs area. Because this is a legislative action, we want to make sure there's substantial justification for a rezone. And as a staff, we think there is because of these 4 items. In Main Street, one of the items is to preserve and support, rehabilitation and improvement in nearby stable residential areas. This is the last undeveloped lot in a residential area, so it would be rehabilitating to the area. And then number 8 there, support redevelopment of existing multifamily. Well, a duplex is that. And at multifamily to the north and the west. In the Jordan Bluffs area, the opportunity area, number 1 there, promote consistency and compatibility. And indeed, that whole area is built out now, and there's significant multifamily. And we think that this duplex would be a good buffer. And number 3 there, support redevelopment of the adjacent areas, enhance redevelopment. So this is a great buffer between the single family residential to the southeast, and then those large 4-story multifamily there in Jordan Bluffs. So with all that, our recommended motion then is to approve this rezone. If Mr. Bennett is in or is attending, let me see if you had any questions. I think Bennett, let's see if he's here.
Jason, I have a city zoning question, so I understand this.
Sure.
It's now multifamily residential, but it's going to be.
I'm sorry, it's regional commercial right now.
But it's just like, does the duplex not fit the multifamily? It just seems interesting that, going from multifamily to high density, and it's only a duplex. Am I missing something?
Right now it's zone regional commercial. It's been regional commercial for over 35 years. Never been developed. It's rather small. It's 1/5 of an acre. It would be difficult, especially with that no access from Center Street. You have to make those difficult turning moves on a 7725. It's just not been attractive for commercial.
Sorry, the way this is worded to me is 2 multifamily, 2 high density. So it's a weird wording. So it sounds like there's 3 zones in here. That's what I was trying to get.
Sorry, yeah, that's RM25 is regional or is multifamily residential, high to medium density zone.
Okay.
Yeah, it is a little confusing.
It just the way it's worded, I thought there was 3 zones in there, and so I was trying to figure out where the medium was in. Never mind. We can move on. Sorry.
No worries. It's a gotcha for a lot of people reading it.
And Jason, this is Quinn. I saw in the information submitted to us that there had been no comments. Has there been any since we received the information?
No, and we've advertised this both at Planning Commission, public hearing, websites, and also a sign on the property. And then we've also noticed for this hearing tonight, we've received no comments.
Councilmember Sperry, this is one of these strange little areas that I represent insofar as it's this LePage Street is not connected so much to other areas that I represent, but also good luck finding it on a map if you ever venture over there. It's actually kind of difficult to find. However, this was 3 years ago when I was running for council. Several of the people who live on LePage were worried about this exact type of scenario and made it well known to me at that time that they were concerned about changing the look of their street that, it's a dead end street as it is now. So everyone who lives there knows each other. In fact, a lot of them are related to each other, the people who live on that street and the various surrounding areas. So they did express that concern to me. Obviously, they apparently didn't make those comments known here, but I just wanted to share that with you and the council that, this has been a concern in the past.
There's 3 residents on LePage, and the only way in is around that corner. And we have a large yellow sign there with the date and the council meeting, so they couldn't have missed it.
Yeah.
Also received mail.
I've seen it from Center Street. You can see it on the fenced area.
Justin, do you recall what was their concern, just any development, or were they specifically saying anything other than a single family home?
No, exactly. They talked about the character of the neighborhood now, and it is, right now there's nothing other than single family homes there, fenced in. So they were concerned. What they said was, we're concerned. And honestly, if the developers here listening, their concern specifically was that a developer would come into this area and try to develop their neighborhood into high density housing. So.
I see that Mr. Bennett is with us.
Mr. Bennett, would you like to make any comments on this presentation?
Dale, you're still muted. I see that Mr. Bennett is with us.
There you go. There you go. Welcome, Dale.
Welcome. How are you? I'm here now. So.
Okay.
Yes, I'm just here to answer any questions. I think to the west, like Jason was saying, there's pretty high density apartments, and to the north they're pretty high density, and to the east is a church, and the south is the only single family. But I think this is a great transition since it's such a small piece. I think it would be low impact on the frontage road, which is kind of a funky road that was put there. But rather than try and do a commercial RC, like something that would have a lot higher traffic, we elected to just try to do a simple duplex on it. So very low traffic, fairly simple. So pretty simple. Jason was very good at explaining everything. So I think if you have any questions, feel free to ask me.
Dale, have you had any communications with the neighbors?
My partner talked to the guy to the south, and they were hoping to buy it, and I guess they didn't. But we did talk to them. He just bought the property, and I think it was March of this year, so he's very new to the area. Didn't talk to the other neighbors south of that, and I think my partner was trying to find who the contact was with the church property. There's a church on the corner, and then the next property just right adjacent to my property is a house that I think it has the same name as the church. If you look at the sign in front of the house. So I'm assuming that they're the same, they're part of the church property. So, and that's all zoned RC. So this is just kind of a small piece in the traffic. I met the city engineer, Keith, out at the site on the property, and he agreed that this would be better. He suggested a fourplex, but we're after talking to Alex and Jason, I think the best we can do is a twin home or a duplex. So that's what we're going for. We have an architect on board putting together some floor plans and elevations as we speak. So.
Any other questions for the developer?
I am glad to hear that you're not considering quad or even more, because just I typically don't have concerns with that type of development, but just where this is nestled back there and the access for cars is tricky to say the least. I think that a duplex or a twin, as you said, would definitely be the best / only option back here in this particular location.
Yeah, and proceeding with that is, Justin, based on what you said, I'm sure the neighbors are happy it's not a fourplex, right? That they were afraid of high density. I don't consider a duplex high density. And I mean, yeah, sure, they'd want a single family home. Duplex is the next best thing, right? Just having two of them there.
Yeah, it's the wording of the.
Yeah, I get it.
Here today that
Yep.
probably raised some eyebrows.
No, and I can see that. Yeah, based on, I mean, that's one of the things with our code, right? It jumps from the, well, just the way that it goes from the single family to the multi-family, the wording of that. But okay.
You were muted, Mayor.
I sure am. Thank you, Laura. Have you received any comments on this public hearing?
No, Mayor, I do not have any public comment on this hearing.
Okay. You have any questions, council, that have not been answered?
Alex, do you remember, were there any public comments during the planning commission?
Not that I can recall. No, this was a pretty uneventful item. Even at the planning commission, I think they spent a few minutes on it.
Surprising. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
I move that we close the public hearing.
Second.
There is now a motion and a second to close this public hearing. Any questions or comments on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? All right, the public hearing is closed, and I'll entertain a motion on the action.
Mayor, based on the following findings, I move that we adopt ordinance number 2020-017, rezoning property located at 847 West Center Street from regional commercial to multifamily residential, medium to high density. Number one, the proposed rezoning is consistent with the goals of the 2016 Midvale City General Plan. And two, the land and its surrounding environs has changed to such a degree that it is in the public interest to recognize the changed character of the area.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion or questions on this motion? Hearing none. Rory, would you ask the questions, please?
Yes, Councilmember Sperry,
Aye.
Robinson,
Aye.
Brown,
Yes.
and Gettle.
Yes.
And Councilmember
Thank you.
Cook absent.
Yes, thank you. Okay, we'll now move to our consent agenda to consider the approval of September 15th, 2020 minutes.
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as described. Any comments or questions on that motion? Rory?
Councilmember Robinson,
Aye.
Brown,
Yes.
Gettle,
Yes.
and Sperry.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay.
We'll now move to our action item. Consider the final approval of subdivision plat for a 17-lot subdivision located at 6790 South, 700 East. And let's see, I guess that's as far as I need to go at this point. Jason?
Good evening again, Jason, planner. Let me share my screen for this final subdivision at 6790 South. The applicant is Brad Reynolds Construction. I saw him earlier. I don't see him right now. His video's off. And we sent out notices to about 60 property owners 2 different times, and we received 4 comments that were read into the public record, both at the Planning Commission and City Council for the preliminary subdivision. Here's the vicinity map. 2 lots right now to be consolidated into 1.8 acre lot, frontage on 700 East there. As far as we could go back with aerial pictures, this area has been this lot, these 2 parcels have been undeveloped since early 80s. It's about 500 feet south of 215. Now these 2 properties, this property and all the surrounding properties that you see in that picture are all single family with duplex overlay. And there just to the west of the property is Jordan and Salt Lake Canal. A little bit of history for this final subdivision request. Planning Commission saw it on the 22nd, and they approved a conditional use for a master plan development, and then the small scale master plan itself, preliminary site plan, and then they recommended approval to the City Council. City Council approved the preliminary plat August 18th. And then today we approved the final site plan as required. Here's the plat. You can see 17 different units, total of 5 buildings, 2 fourplex buildings and 3 separate buildings of 3 units each. All these will be 2 stories with 2-car garage and a basement. There's a private street that ends in 2 stub streets, and the end of those stub streets, there's a playground, a pavilion. They also have the required 6 guest parking spaces also split between the end of the stub streets. This plat meets all the requirements of Title 16 and Title 17, approved by Fire and Engineering. And we believe that the location and density is compatible with the area. Conditions of approval then with this final plat would be just to require, get the signatures required for the Mylars. And they have, Mr. Reynolds has submitted the proposed HOA and CCNRs. They've also been in contact with the canal company. They've made all the required changes for the final plat. And then we just asked that they simultaneously record the HOA and the CCNRs with the final plat. So with that, we recommend approval of the 17-lot final subdivision. And I see Ryan is online if you want to unmute Ryan for any questions.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. Appreciate the work that you put into this. There's there's not much more I need to say. I think Jason explained it pretty well. We're just excited to get this going. I think it'll be a great product for the community, and you know, we love building in Midvale. We're excited to be back if it gets approved. So I'm willing to take any questions if anyone has any.
Any questions for Ryan or Jason?
Just a comment, looking at the picture that you have up now, it's almost a perfect pentagon. So if you could call it Pentagon on 7th, that might be a pretty good selling point for people.
It is 2020, so.
Not a bad idea.
I went on a walk from my house, which this is like 4 miles away. So I was halfway out of my mind by the time I got here. And it seems like the perfect spot for this project. You know, there's a big blank spot here. I don't know. Seems like a good, I mean, it's clear on the map, but when you're walking by it, kind of dusk, it's the hole feels even bigger than this. So I think it'll be good for our community to have that, opposed to just sort of field where, you know, mischief or something could happen there. So I think this is a good project.
Yeah, I said when we had our prior meeting, I mean, I grew up in the neighborhood just by this. And so for many years, I wondered what would go in here. And I think it fits. You know, you've got 7th East. You have other multifamily projects on the 7th. To the backside, you've got the canal, which is a natural buffer with a single family, or going into the single family neighborhood. But there's also some duplexes nearby. So I think it fits the neighborhood.
Okay, any other questions or comments? I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, based on compliance with the requirements of the Midvale City Municipal Code, I move that we approve the 17 lot final subdivision plat at 6790 South, 700 East with the following conditions. 1, the applicant shall obtain all required signatures on the final subdivision plat Mylar. 2, the declaration of CCNRs and the homeowners association shall be recorded concurrently with the final subdivision plat.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. One final opportunity. Any questions or comments? Hearing none. Rory, would you ask the question?
Yes, excuse me, Councilmember Brown,
Yes.
Gettle,
Yes.
Barry,
Aye.
and Robinson.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ryan, we look forward to your project.
All right, thank you, everyone.
Betcha. Our second action item is a consideration for adoption of resolution number 2020-R-43, City Council of Midvale City, Utah, authorizing the issuance and sale of not more than 9 million aggregate principal amount of water, sewer, and stormwater revenue refunding bonds and related matters. Kyle Marr, help us through this.
Thank you, Mayor. As you may remember, last council meeting, we had a discussion with Laura Lewis, our financial advisor with Lewis Young Robertson in Birmingham, regarding some opportunities to refinance some of our enterprise fund, our water, sewer, and stormwater bonds. We have before you tonight a parameters resolution to authorize the issuance of those bonds, and we have Laura here to describe what this parameters resolution entails and what you'll actually be voting on. So I'll turn the time over to Laura.
Right. Hello, everyone. As you recall, we discussed this issue about 3 weeks ago at your last, well, I think it was your last work session. And Councilmember Gettle, you had some questions, and I apologize. I failed to get your phone number and follow up with you. So if you remember what they were, I think they were about sort of the risk going into the market. I'm certainly happy to discuss that if I'm accurate in my memory.
Yeah, that was my question. And then for some reason, my video cut out for about 10 minutes while you gave
While I
a
whacked it
beautiful
off.
reasoned
Okay.
response.
I'll try again, and if it goes out again, then we'll know someone somewhere does not want me to hear. Well, and you know, as you can well imagine, you know, the answer to that question kind of changes every day. Since we last met, the 5-year U.S. Treasury and the 10-year U.S. Treasury have both gone up 5 and 8 basis points respectively. The municipal market doesn't always follow that, you know, in lockstep, but it's a good indication. An index that we look to, it's referred to as the MMD. It's municipal market data, comes out from Thomson Reuters, very specific to municipal bonds. And I checked the spreads there, and in the you know, 10-year range, they've gone up about 4 basis points since we last talked. And in the, you know, longer range, which you know, specific to this issue you don't care about because these bonds are so short, but in the longer end, they've gone up about 8 basis points. Now, there was a you know, point in time not very many weeks ago that you know, underwriters were, and again, underwriters that we talk to sort of across the board. We don't do a, you know, exhaustive survey, but you know, we don't have just one desk. We have, you know, relationships with many underwriters, so we call and talk to you know, a lot of traders. And we were, you know, kind of getting, yeah, the market can be kind of soft in November and December if the election is close and, you know, it's contested, like we've, you know, seen in years past, that everyone will just want to sit on their hands and do nothing. You know, today I heard from a colleague who talked to, I can't remember which underwriter, which desk he was talking to, but it might have been Raymond James. Anyway, they were kind of indicating, well, if it, you know, if it ends up being a very decisive victory for one side or the other, then it might be a great time to be in the market. So, you know, it's nothing if not unpredictable. So the nice thing that we will have here, you know, during the last 3 weeks, we spent some time getting some indicative rates from banks that would do a direct purchase, as well as indicative rates from some underwriters. We were only able to get one bank to respond with an indicative rate. They kind of hate to, you know, show their colors, if you will, until we have a term sheet in front of them. But we did get an indicative rate, and then we compared that against, you know, the worst of the 2 interest rate scales that we got from underwriters, thinking that, you know, I'm not getting probably the sharpest pencil on my, you know, estimate from the bank. I'm not getting the sharpest, you know, I'll use the not sharpest of the 2 scales from the underwriter, so that we were doing our best to compare, you know, apples and apples. And in so doing, what we determined is that the, you know, the benefit on that day of doing a public offering would, you know, likely save the city an extra $50,000. The concern is, and as Kyle and Matt and I discussed it, the concern that I expressed, that I think they, you know, understood the sentiment and agreed with, is we could easily lose that $50,000 knowing that that we can't get into the market for a public offering until after the, you know, potential chaos after the election. So, you know, we can have the term sheet. One of my colleagues hopes to have the term sheet done tomorrow. We'll review it and have that hopefully in banks' hands on Monday or Tuesday, give them 7 to 10 days to respond, and then we'll have their rates locked in. They'll usually give us 2 weeks to close. So we can get to certainty in terms of rates sooner than we can with the public offering. And so it was decided that we ought to pursue the direct purchase option, which is what the resolution that you'll adopt tonight contemplates. We discussed and I recommended that you know, the plan of action can be we go ahead and issue the term sheet and get those bids in from the banks that would buy the whole thing. And if we don't like what we see, we will certainly reserve in the term sheet the option to reject any and all bids. So if we don't hit, you know, what we think are reasonable savings targets given the market, again, we've got issues in the market of, about every, sometimes 2 a week, sometimes just 1 a week. We have a pretty good sense of what the public offering market looks like. So if when we get those bids, it looks like they're really, really not sharpening their pencil, and we really think we can do better with the public offering at that point, we will reject all of those bids, and we can then, basically reboot and do a public offering. What would be required of you as a council if we go down that route? So in addition to, if you adopt the parameters resolution that's in front of you tonight, we will not need to come back to you before we finalize everything with a direct purchase. If we decide that that's not the right course of action once we have bids in hand, then we will come back to you as a city council, and you will have to approve and authorize an official statement that will go into the market. So it would require one more meeting, no more hearings, no more publication, no addition to the contestability period or anything like that. So I wanted you to be aware of that. So the resolution that's in front of you tonight allows what's referred to as your designated officers, which I had up here, I swear, not very long ago, and then I started working. Oh, there we go. Working on other things. So the designated officers include the mayor or mayor pro tem, the city manager, or the director of administrative services. And the way the resolution is currently worded is any one of them can approve, the final bid of who we get that we determine as a winning bidder if we go ahead with a direct purchase, as long as we stay within the parameters that are set forth here. Now, we're all going to be very keen on, knowing what the savings will be. The minimum in our industry, kind of the basic litmus test is so long as you're generating savings that in terms of when you compare the dollar amount of the savings to the dollar amount of the par amount of bonds being issued, if that is a 3% or higher, and we're well above that now, then most in the industry will say, oh yeah, you should go ahead and do that. I have other things that I like to look at in addition to that, including, the cost of issuance and making sure that we're, even though those are netted out of that figure as we compare it, I want to make sure that our savings exceeds the cost of issuance. And, again, we would just look to see what we think the market's doing at that point. So with that, the parameters that have been set for the principal amount not to exceed 9 million, the bonds not to mature more than 11 years. And typically, we have it in here that it could be sold at a discount, but banks typically bid at par. And we have the interest rate set at 5%. Again, what that gives us is a flexibility. If we do end up doing an underwriting, they can market the bonds at a premium. You only effectively pay what the yield is, not the premium, but I have to put that 5% in for those purposes. So with that, specifically to you, Councilman Gettle, did I respond to your question? If not, do you want to ask it again and I'll wax more eloquent or try anyway?
No, I think you answered my question. It's at the end of the day, it's uncertain right now.
Yeah, there you go.
which can be the answer for most things in 2020. Uncertain.
Yes, they can. That's very true.
Yeah, but I guess
with
more
the less uncertain option of the two.
Yes.
But I think more so my question was, do we have options if things go to H and an H basket?
Yep. And okay. we have tried really hard to preserve that. And again, by the adoption, I haven't mentioned this, but should, by the adoption of this resolution, it doesn't lock you into anything. You don't have to refund the bonds. You don't have to refund them direct purchase or public offering. So if things do go, way sideways, right, and there's no savings, we've had a lovely exercise, and we'll set it on a shelf until the rates come back to us. So you're not locked in until the designated officer agrees that we're within the parameters and they like the savings and that kind of thing. Certainly it's usually my advice that we come back after the fact and share with you what the savings are, and you can, applaud and yay that we save money. But you know, it's certainly my job as your fiduciary to make sure that it's a beneficial transaction for you. And you're not locked into anything until the day that we agree and sign what's called a bond purchase agreement. And at that point, then you are locked in. But at that point, the rate is also locked in. So the day that's signed, if the markets go to, you know, hell in a handbasket the next day, too bad for them. Yay for us.
Okay, thank you for that.
Mhm. Are there any other questions?
Questions for Laura? We appreciate your being here, Laura, with us this evening.
Sure.
And going over that again. If there are no questions, I'll entertain a motion, please.
I move that we approve resolution 2020 R23, authorizing the issuance and sale of not more than $9 million in aggregate of water, sewer, and stormwater revenue, refunding bonds and related matters.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments on the motion? Rory, would you ask the questions, please?
Yes, Councilmember Sperry,
Aye.
Robinson,
Aye.
Brown,
Yes.
and Gettle.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. One other thing, I can't honestly remember whether I mentioned it at your work session or not, but this is only to address the refunding. You know, I'm aware, as is your staff, that, you know, down the road a ways, you may have need for other new money financing for some water and sewer projects. But it was felt that, you know, that couldn't be pinned down at this time. And so we didn't add it to this transaction. So I just want you to be aware of that.
Thank you. There's always something down the road, that's for sure.
Oh.
Okay, we are going to recess our city council meeting. And if you can get over to your RDA.
Mayor, we're going to have to wait for IT to switch it over. So
Okay.
it will be just a few minutes on that.
All right.
Do we want to make a motion to recess?
I think we ought to. I'll entertain a motion to recess the city council meeting and until we reconvene again after redevelopment agency meeting.
So moved.
Is there a second to that motion, please?
Second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second to recess and reconvene after we take care of some redevelopment agency items. All in favor, say aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we are in recess then, and we'll wait till we get the word from Jake. You're the one doing this?
Yes. You'll let me know as soon as he's ready, Mayor.
Okay.
I thought we moved to go to recess. This doesn't seem like recess to me.
You're free, Dustin. There's supposed to be treats at recess,
Yeah, and jump rope, kickball, foursquare.
right?
Hopscotch.
Yeah.
We'd make
Looks like we're right for the treats, not the toys.
When I was in elementary, we'd make a dash to where the balls and bats were and head out and place a little bit of rounders in the diamond. Everybody could remember where they were the last time we played, and we'd keep track of where we finished. So the next recess.
Oh, wow.
That's awesome.
We loved it.
I think poor Jake actually has to run downstairs. Okay, good to go.
We're good to go? All
Yeah.
right. I want to welcome everybody to the Redevelopment Agency of Midvale City on this October 6th, 2020. And I want to remind everyone that this is an electronic meeting, and it's because we cannot guarantee that there's not a substantial risk to health and safety of anyone that wanted to attend at the anchor location. So we don't have one. The restrictions take place across the state for limiting public gatherings. The city wants to make sure everyone interested in participating in city council meetings can do so, or in this case, redevelopment agency meetings can do so. So if you want to join in, there's a YouTube channel and also a Mixer and city website that will get you into this meeting. If you have a public comment to be read into the record by city staff during public comments or public hearing portions, you can do so by making your comment in the form of an email sent to Laura Magnus at LMAGNESS@midvale.com. Please limit your comments to 400 words, which take about 3 minutes to read. You must include your first and last name. You may include the city of residence and include the name of the agenda item so city staff knows when you want your public comment to be read into the record. City staff will read into the record the equivalent of 3 minutes. Your input is important to us, so please keep your comments concise. Rory, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, Board Member Gettle.
Here.
Sperry.
Here.
Brown.
Here.
And Robinson.
Here.
Thank you. We will now open up for public comments. Any person wishing to comment on any item not otherwise scheduled for a public hearing on the agenda may submit their comment via email to lmagnus@midvale.com. Prior to the completion of this portion of the meeting, items brought forward to the attention of the board will be turned over to staff to provide a response outside of the meeting. I'm going to ask Laura Magnus at this time, do you have any public comments for the redevelopment agency?
No, Mayor, I do not have any public comments at this time.
All right, thank you. We'll close the public comments and move to the consent agenda, where we will consider approval of the September 1st, 2020 minutes.
Mayor, I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Any questions or comments on the motion? Rory, would you call the questions, please?
Yes, Board Member Gettle.
Yes.
Sperry.
Aye.
Robinson.
Aye.
Brown.
Yes.
And Brown.
Thank you.
That was it. Sorry.
Thank you. Okay, next, we have two action items. The first is to consider resolution number 2020-11 RDA, adopting the revised Main Street Community Development Area budget. And here we bring in Cody Hill. Welcome, Cody.
Thank you, Mayor Hale. I appreciate it. So we have met with each council member and the mayor in groups of two for the most part. And we presented for about an hour about the Main Street Community Development Project area and presented our vision for the project area, as well as a preliminary but revised budget. So as you know, the project area plan was put together about 4 years ago, and a budget was created but never adopted. That budget was not initially accepted by the taxing entities, and it has kind of been in limbo until now. We put together a revised budget. Since the presentation that you saw, we have made one change to that budget. So I have a brief presentation just to show you that one change. So I will share my screen at this point so that you can see that. And are you looking at the PowerPoint now?
Yes.
Okay, good. So again, the project area that we're talking about is the Main Street Community Development Area, 117 acres in that area. And some of these slides are brought over from our last presentation, so I'll go through a little bit quicker than I normally would, but just remember that the main objective is to create a sense of place, to shape redevelopment, enhance arts and culture, to preserve and celebrate history of Midvale, and to support spaces to gather and recreate. And that's kind of the breakdown of how we will achieve that. And the main change is that we're made aware that there is a developer with interest in developing a considerable amount of Class A office space in the northern portion of the project area, so a little bit to the south of the road home. And were this project to come together, then they would likely need support from the redevelopment agency to support parking initiative. And so we have decided that we really like the budget that we initially put together and thought that it would work well, and that the other taxing entities would have an appetite to support that budget. But we also wanted to be have a little bit of flexibility should this large project come together. And so what we've done is the first budget that you saw is the primary budget. It's the one that will be in place initially. And then there's a contingency budget that is automatically triggered if a project comes together and is built with an assessed value of over 60 million. And the only difference between the contingency budget and the primary budget is it changes the cap amount of what the agency can collect from 15.5 million to 27 million. And so that will give us the ability to lend support to the Class A 300,000 square feet of Class A office space, that project, if it comes together. And if it doesn't come together, then we'll keep going ahead with the primary budget. And so here's a side-by-side of the two budgets. And you can see all of the redevelopment activities are the same amount of costs for all of them, for parking structures, capital projects, public art. The only difference is the cap amount is different. So the total CDA expenses is 15.2 versus 26.8. And then because admin and affordable housing are percentages of the total amount, those are going to go up proportionally to the additional revenues brought in. So admin cost was 3% of the total budget, and so that's going to go up, and affordable housing was 20%, and so that's going to go up. And so all the other expenses are the same, and we add in the large parking structure to support the contingency budget. And so what that will do, like I said, it will provide flexibility. If the project materializes, then we won't have to go back to the taxing entities and amend all of the interlocal agreements. We'll be able to do it all at once, have the primary budget in place. And if this project comes together and looks for support, then we have the ability to offer that support. The contingency budget does offer a higher return on investments, higher level of growth, and tax increment to the local taxing districts. And so this shows a side-by-side of that net benefit. The additional costs we went through with you already, but just to show the primary budget, the net benefit over or at the 10-year point is 32,000, And then with the contingency budget, we are very conservative in saying the sales tax is going to remain the same, though bringing in those additional employees would likely increase the sales taxes, but just because the it would be an office and not a retail outlet, they're not directly generating any sales tax dollars. And so we took the conservative approach and held that constant. And then the additional benefit is $63,500 at year 10. And so this shows the annual benefits side by side in jobs, which obviously you're going to have considerably more jobs with that 300,000 square foot Class A office building in the contingency budget versus the primary budget. And then the other community benefits are going to be the same. And so once we have, once the agency considers this budget, and if it's adopted, then we will consider or ask that the agency board consider an interlocal agreement between the city and the agency. And at that point, we'll move forward. We'll proceed with meeting and discussing the budget and participation with the other taxing entities like the school district, the county, and then water district, mosquito abatement district, the fire district, all the other local districts, and hopefully enter in with interlocal agreements with all of them. And then the agency will take care of all the associated noticing and filing requirements. And once we have a significant portion of the budget secured, then the agency will direct more of our attention towards achieving the goals that are outlined in the budget document. And so that is really the overview of the budget that we're proposing and the main change to it, which is the contingency budget element. And I happily take any questions that you might have about the budget or the interlocal agreements, even though that is the next action item, but happy to discuss it. All kind of is part of one big picture. So I'm happy to field any questions or concerns at this point.
Okay, we've seen a little bit more of this. Any questions or comments for Cody? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion on action item A.
Mayor, I move that the agency pass resolution number 2020-11 RDA and adopt the revised Main Street Community Development Area budget.
Is there a second to that motion, please?
Second.
We have a motion and a second on action item A. Any questions or comments? Rory, would you ask the question, please?
Yes, Board Member Gettle.
Sorry, I just took a drink. Yes.
Sorry.
Bad timing.
Sperry.
Aye.
Robinson.
Aye.
And Brown.
Yes.
Thank you. We'll now move to action item B to consider resolution 2020-12 RDA adopting the Main Street Community Development Tax Increment Interlocal Cooperation Agreement between Midvale City and the Redevelopment Agency of Midvale City. What does that mean?
Thank you, Mayor. So this is the associated interlocal agreement. So this is how the redevelopment agency will actually secure and receive funding into the future. And this agreement is between the city and the agency. The city agrees to participate future tax increment revenues to the agency to the extent of 60%. So 60% of the property tax dollars that are generated through growth will go to the agency to pursue the aims and goals listed in the budget that was just adopted. And the base tax year value. So the main points of an agreement are what is the base tax year value, which is tax year 2019, which I believe is about 53 million, but can be adjusted based on the county assessor's review of that. The participation length, which is 20 years. The participation percentage, which is 60%. And the cap amount, which there's two cap amounts in the interlocal agreement. There's the cap amount from the primary budget, which is 15.5 million. And if a project is built within the project area over 60 million, so it's a single non-residential project with an assessed value of over 60 million, that will automatically trigger the contingency budget, and the cap amount will be changed from 15.5 million to 27 million. And so those are the main points of the agreement. So 20 years, 60%, the two cap amounts, 15.5 or 27 million. And I would say the other important point is when the project has to be triggered or start collecting tax increment, and that is in within the next 3 tax years. So by tax year 2020 or March 1st, 2022.
Thank you. Any questions or comments for Cody on this action item? Well, you start thinking 20 years ahead, and I'm thinking grandkids. Oh my gosh. All right, time passes. Is there anyone that would like to make a motion on this action item, please?
Mayor, I move that we, I move that the agency pass resolution number 2020-12 RDA and enter into the Main Street Community Development Tax Increment Interlocal Cooperation Agreement within the city.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments on the motion? Rory, would you ask the questions, please?
Yes, Board Member Brown,
Yes.
Gettle,
Yes.
Sperry,
Aye.
and Robinson.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the RDA meeting and reconvene into the city council meeting.
Mayor, I move that we adjourn the RDA meeting and enter back into our city council meeting.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn and reconvene in city council. Any questions or comments on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Any opposed? All right, we stand adjourned of our redevelopment agency and will reconvene momentarily in city council meeting. Thank you. Rory, that dog is giving you too much pleasure.
Oh.
I know, I've been trying to keep her from getting on the camera. She keeps trying to type. She likes me being home. All right, Jake.
Let me know when we're ready.
Okay. I think he thinks we were just going to adjourn. Sorry about that. You lay down. 1 second, he says.
Okay.
He has to run upstairs. Poor kid, getting his exercise tonight.
Yeah.
Do you want to come back up? Dustin, where are your dogs?
One of my friends came and got them.
Oh,
Yeah, just I don't, because I didn't get a chance to take them out whenever I got off work at 5 before our workshop. I was like, someone's got to let them out. So they're not here, but I have my kitty cat. She's
oh, there you go. Hey.
just me and her.
Nice. Okay, we're good to go.
Thank you. All right, we are now back in city council meeting. We are in our action items, and we are at letter C, the third action item to consider resolution number 2020 R44, approving and adopting the Main Street Community Development Tax Increment Interlocal Cooperation Agreement between Midvale City and the Redevelopment Agency of Midvale City. Cody, would you like to add anything to this?
No, just that the agreement is the same, where you're considering the exact same agreement, but now you're doing it on behalf of the city council, when before you were doing it as the redevelopment agency board.
Thank you. All right, if there are any questions or comments, now's the time to ask. Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion to consider this resolution.
Mayor, I move that the city council pass resolution number 2020-R-44, enter into the Main Street Community Development Tax Increment Interlocal Cooperation Agreement with the Redevelopment Agency of Midvale City. I tried that in one breath and it didn't work. It was a lot more than I thought. I was like going, I was going to commit to it, and then it didn't work.
You got close. I was impressed.
Those two.
We have a second.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion and a second now. Any questions or comments on the motion? Rory, would you ask this final question?
Yes. Councilmember Robinson.
Aye.
Brown.
Yes.
Gettle.
Yes.
And Sperry.
Aye.
All right, unanimous. We're good.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, and thank you, Dustin, for taking care of that.
Yes.
Playing the part of Councilmember Glover.
Have
We'll
a
see
good
you
night.
all. We'll see
Good
you
night.
all soon.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Good night.
All right, thank you.
Good night, everybody.